Hello, everybody in the chat room.
Oh yeah, you are echoey.
Uh-oh, I could move my microphone around. I'm
Just
out
get
of
right up close to your mic. I think that'll help a lot.
Okay, here I'm not recording from my normal location, but I'm gonna do my best. No, I don't like the microphone here. Now we're live, so I guess I should have done this before. Well, why did you say
Marcus? Hello, Dave. And Marcus living in the Western time zone. Elon, are you in a Western? What time zone? What time is it where you are?
5 o'clock, baby.
Wow, what's it like to record at 5 o'clock?
I'm a little hungry. I'm gonna wait till I'm done eating.
You know when they say it's 5 o'clock somewhere?
Yeah, is that a saying?
That's where you are now.
Here I am. All right, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. How's this, Brian? I've got my mic in front of me. Does that look cool? Does it sound good?
Oh yeah, you look very professional, actually.
Wow. And does it sound okay? I should do this all the time.
Yeah.
A mic
well, you'll listen to the sound and you'll see how it goes. Maybe I can take my mic out of my booth also. Because like bedding, like I was thinking, you don't use the bedding foam anymore because it's like bad, right? Like it's a health hazard.
All right, let's get into the show. All right.
No, but was that true?
I just bought this cool like $300 shell thing instead. So.
But why?
Because it looked cool, and I think actually the main reason was Dina thought we wanted to not have an ugly eyesore in the bedroom and instead have this pretty blue shell.
I thought it was for health, like a health.
Well, yeah, I think we also wanted to get rid of that bed stuff because it might have asbestos or who knows.
Well, I definitely don't want to be breathing that in.
Or flame retardants. I don't know. Okay. I think we can start. Am I like too loud now?
No, you sound so good.
Okay, I might change something for the next time we do normal show. But okay. This is a normal show, so let's start. Ready?
Yeah, I need to try and remember to.
Not ready.
I have to decide whether to keep Mike Smith on the bench at like 8:55. So.
Okay.
I'm benching him so he doesn't get me negative points.
Of course. Okay.
Which is likely.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You have to do it again.
Why?
It went weird.
Because I'm too close to the microphone?
It might have been that. It sounded like your old internet issue. Maybe it's a microphone issue.
I don't know. Yeah, it probably is.
Try again.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys own Eric Karlsson in their keeper pools. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, coming to you remotely from Seattle. And with me is my partner in crime, the fantasy hockey robot himself, Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everybody. What a wild week it's been. Elon, you know how we talk at the beginning of the year, how you should not invest, and throughout the year, how you shouldn't invest a large acquisition cost. Like, don't spend a big trade chip or draft chip on a goalie. We have so many examples of that this week. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's how I decided to frame this week's show. We're going to talk all about goalies, get everyone on tilt about the goalies they drafted, maybe get people excited about some free agent goalies that they should start picking up or considering. It's going to be a really fun show before we get into everything. And also, of course, we'll do our regular injuries, outjuries, hot streaks, cold streaks. We've got you covered. That's why we're the best fantasy hockey podcast out there, Brian, because we're not going to leave any player undiscussed. By the way, I know I'm sounding a little bit weird. Like I said, I'm not in my normal recording studio. I think this is the first time I've ever recorded, not from my normal place. So bear with me. I feel a little funny.
You sound subdued. Like I tried to bring a little extra energy with me. Are there other people in the house that you're recording in right now?
I'm at my friend's house who has 2 kids, and they're like sitting down to like family dinner right now. And I'm upstairs in this like side bedroom, and I'm nervous that they hear me and are making fun of me because they've never heard me talk in my podcast voice as opposed to my regular voice. But Brian,
what's the difference?
Well, normally I say, hey guys, how's it going? What's up? And then on podcast, I'm like, all right, Brian, let's talk about the next player. And first, though, of course, let's mention that we are presented by DobberHockey.com, which is the top fantasy hockey website out there. No question. You've got the articles all the time, like daily ramblings, giving you the updates after every single day of games, telling you what you need to know. All the tools, the frozen tools, I use them all the time. I use them to prep the show. You got line combinations, starting goalies, everything's there. So DobberHockey.com, check it out. Brian, like you said, I want to get started with goalies. Let's just go over like all the crazy goalie situations and give people an update. And maybe we could come up with a ranking as we go of what people should be doing here. I want to start in St. Louis. Okay, Jake Allen has continued to disappoint since the last time we talked about him. After his 5-1 loss to Minnesota last Saturday, he fell to a 4-3-3 record with an .879 save percentage. Just brutal. The Blues decided to give Chad Johnson a shot in their next game last Wednesday versus Carolina, and he shined. He stopped 38 of 39 in a 4-1 win, and that earned him the start on Friday versus San Jose, and he was even better. He stopped all 33 shots, 4-0 win. Like, okay, then today, actually, so I prepped this last night, but I see that St. Louis played again today. They lost to Minnesota, so I guess Chad Johnson wasn't as good, but he did get the third start in a row. He led in 3 goals on 18 shots for the loss against Minnesota. But still, Brian, at this point, like, how nervous would you be as an Allen owner, and how quickly would you be adding Chad Johnson? As we go through these situations, we'll start ranking, like I said, which backups are the closest to stealing the jobs. Like, I know Chad Johnson didn't do great today, but probably still better than Jake Allen would have done from what we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, or about as bad. I was gonna, my piece on Allen for the show tonight ends with, let's see what happens today with Chad Johnson's second start before giving advice. And so I'll get to that. But first, let's just look at how disappointing Jake Allen has been. He's started 11 times this year, and he's only finished with a save percentage above .912 in 2 of those 11 starts. In another of those 2, he managed exactly a .912, which is why it's the mark I chose. All 7 of his other 11 starts have been sub .890 for Jake Allen. Yikes. So that's not the resume of a goalie who should be starting for what should be one of the NHL's better teams on paper. We've mentioned that Jake Allen before, like sort of giving an excuse for him that he has a low expected save percentage, and he's had it all the while. Like, he's faced a difficult workload, but come on, at some point, you need to at least do only as poorly as like an average goalie would in your shoes. And Jake Allen has underperformed even a low expected save percentage. And you should at least be able to overcome those difficulties entirely if you are a legit NHL #1 goalie. And Jake Allen has failed to do that. He hasn't stopped 9 out of 10 shots in almost 65% of his outings. So he's having a lot of bad times out there. So are his fantasy owners. It's a wonder that up until Friday, given all of this awfulness happening for Jake Allen, that Chad Johnson had started just 1 game. Clearly the Blues were trying to get Allen going, believing in him, just throwing him back in the crease, saying, you're our guy, you're our guy, you're our guy, and getting let down over and over and over. But the door to challenge Jake Allen now is wide open. And Chad Johnson got more than a foot in the door, a foot plus a couple toes in the door with that shutout against San Jose. Unfortunately, at least those toes have backed out of the door after a Jake Allen-like start in between the pipes in today's game. And that's the thing with Chad Johnson. When you ask me how endangered is Jake Allen's spot as the #1 goalie in St. Louis, it's to his benefit that the only backup at the moment is Chad Johnson. And we had sort of earmarked Ville Husso as a guy who could, by the end of the year, find himself in a position to push for starts. But right now, he's playing in the AHL, and Chad Johnson is the NHL backup. And that doesn't seem to be changing. And for as long as that's the case, I don't know that the Blues really have a great goaltending option between the 2 of them.
Yeah, like, I don't know, because you say, like, Chad Johnson had a Jake Allen-like start today. He only led in 3 goals. I feel like Jake Allen would have led in 5 and then gotten
how many shots?
Yeah, not that many shots. But all that to say, we've seen Brian Elliott take the job from Jake Allen. We've seen Carter Hutton take the job. Maybe it's Chad Johnson's time. Or maybe, like you say, Allen gets another shot. I'm sure he will. Of all of these situations, I think I agree with you that Chad Johnson is the least likely person to take a bit. At some point, Jake Allen has to do well, or else maybe they bring up Husso. Like, who knows? They got to do something. I actually traded Jake Allen. I drafted him in the couple. One of my dumb goalie drafting mistakes. I traded him along with Alex Pietrangelo to get Seth Jones. I thought it was an obvious move. Of course, the one flaw in my plan was that Alex Pietrangelo seems to be heating up himself. He scored a goal today. He's now, I think, got points in like 3 straight games. And also Jaden Schwartz, someone that people have been worried about. He got an assist today, and Schwartz also had a goal and an assist yesterday. We had a lot of people asking us if it's time for them to drop Jaden Schwartz. He had been a big snoozer, like going into yesterday's games. He was at 4 points in 11 games. Now he gets up to like 7 points in 12. It looks a lot better for him. So I guess at this point, we say that Jaden Schwartz, you have a stay of execution, especially like he's still on the top line, right? He assisted today on a goal by Tarasenko. He's playing with like Tarasenko and Ryan O'Reilly on the top line. So how could you not want Jaden Schwartz even when he's slumping? Like he's always someone that he's going to threaten to score a goal while he's on the top line. And we've seen him approach like a 70-point pace at times.
Yeah, as we said last week about Jaden Schwartz, so long as you're managing your expectations about what you're going to get from him, he's worth holding on to. In some super shallow leagues, like you could let him go for another 55, 60 point player. But in most leagues, you probably don't want to let him go. And just to close the loop on Chad Johnson, Elon, 18 shots against today against Minnesota, and he stopped 15 of those.
Yeah, well, small sample size.
833.
Got to take a look at what the shots were that went through, got to watch the games.
None of them were on the power play.
It was a Pietrangelo goal, by the way, not a Tarasenko goal. Okay, next, let's talk about the Pittsburgh situation. Matt Murray's season has been such a disaster. I don't know, Brian, you could tell me if it's been worse or better than Jake Allen's. It's like they've both been really bad. I feel like there's been a couple more good games from Murray, but he followed up a terrible 5-0 loss to the Leafs last Saturday with 4 goals against on 27 shots through 2 periods game versus New Jersey on Monday before he got pulled, and he hasn't been back in the net since. Casey DeSmith came in and stopped 11 of 12 in the third in that game. Then he got the Wednesday start versus Washington, where he stopped 20 of 22 in a 2-1 loss. And then just like Chad Johnson, this earned Casey DeSmith weekend start, and he took full advantage. Yesterday, he stopped all 39 shots in a shutout over Arizona. So a lot of these backups getting shutouts to really make it seem like they deserve to get more of the net. At this point, Casey DeSmith is at a .942 save percentage in 9 games. Matt Murray sits at a sad .886 save percentage in his 9 games. So it's not even like a small sample size thing like Chad Johnson. They've both played the same number of games, and DeSmith is destroying Matt Murray. DeSmith is having like a Vezina caliber season so far. Obviously, we have to see if he could get enough games to even be in consideration. And first of all, forget about the Vezina. He's got to steal the job, but it seems like maybe he has done it or will do it. Like I said, he's had 2 starts in a row now. How does DeSmith and Murray rank to you compared to Johnson and Allen? And like, is DeSmith a must add at this point if he's available? Because Pittsburgh's a good team. They could score some goals. And right now, Casey DeSmith is on fire.
Okay. So just first to unpack, when you're asking me, how do I rank between DeSmith and Murray?
I know what you're going to say, Brian. Just like, make it yours.
I just don't get it.
Make it yours.
What are you asking me to do?
Sometimes I feel like I could just throw something out there and you could, okay, how about this? Who's more likely to lose the job? That's like one way you could do it. Or we could talk about more in terms of like which starter is closer to being droppable. Or you could say which backup is the more must own. Like, I don't know, whatever you feel like.
Different questions. So I want to make sure that we've set the expectation for how I rank them so that it's clear what's being ranked. Okay, I'll clarify when I get there because I'm still not sure how I want to. I'll go back though. When you started talking about Matt Murray, you said you had a feeling that he had at least one more good start than Jake Allen. Well, Jake Allen had a quality start in 4 of his 11 outings so far this year, which is awful. Matt Murray, he's been on the right side of 900 just 3 times in 9 tries. And like 900, like that's the bar we're setting, incredibly low. So 67% of the time, Matt Murray is blowing up your numbers and giving his team and your fantasy team a very outside chance at picking up a win. And we've been signaling our interest in Casey DeSmith on the show and amongst our patrons only Facebook group for a while now. Just like Jake Allen, you're looking at Matt Murray and you're saying, how long do you let your guy quote unquote settle in when he's clearly fighting pucks night after night after night? And let's also clarify who Matt Murray is, as we did in our almanac when we refused him entry into our top tier of goalies this year, because he's a guy, Matt Murray, he came in hot after that Marc-Andre Fleury injury in his rookie season, stayed that way to start his career in a successful playoff run. Then he did really well in a timeshare with Marc-Andre Fleury the next season. But going back to the start of 2017-18, so for the last calendar year plus a month, Matt Murray is now a .903 goalie who has been pretty much blowing it in 6 out of every 10 starts he's gotten. That is very dangerous. Like, why even bother? So why not Casey DeSmith, right? The danger for Murray and a challenge from DeSmith is that Pittsburgh, unlike St. Louis, seems to be able to manage elsewhere on the ice just fine on a consistent basis. So you let DeSmith in the net, he plays just reasonably well, and the team in front of him makes it look even better because they'll get the win with just average goaltending. They don't need anyone special. I mean, Pittsburgh hasn't at all been the soundest team defensively this season, but they have the high-octane offense firing on all cylinders that can balance out a poor goaltending performance. So Casey DeSmith really just has to do all right, and he'll look pretty good on a team that can win nightly with an all right goalie. Are you talking? Or are you muted?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to bring up, sorry, so the first.
Oh, and I'll throw in one more line and then you can go.
Okay.
Okay. And as you said, Elon, Casey DeSmith has been more than all right. He's been really good in the time we've seen him so far. So if you're asking me to rank Allen and Murray, like which guy should be more worried about, I would be really worried as a Matt Murray owner. By now, he's burnt through the laurels he was able to rest on for much of 2017-18. And you've got Casey DeSmith, who's unrestricted free agent next year. Maybe the Penguins want to see what he can do for the team before they have to decide whether to let him walk or re-sign him. I would add someone like Casey DeSmith before Chad Johnson, just to have a little more hope for his upside. And you might even be a week or two behind in adding DeSmith if that's suddenly your plan after listening to this. I think the Pittsburgh net might officially be open. It's DeSmith's job to win because I think Murray's already shown no capability to hold the job. I think just because DeSmith to me seems like a more capable challenger than Chad Johnson, and Pittsburgh seems to be able to cover for an average goalie better than St. Louis can at the moment. I think Murray is more likely to lose his job before Jake Allen.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like Matt Murray has shown us in his career that he's capable of being better than Jake Allen. But overall, yeah, it's a very concerning situation. And you said, Brian, that people might not have the chance to add DeSmith. Might be too late. I'm taking a look on Yahoo. Casey DeSmith only 17% owned, though I do have this spreadsheet that patron Marcus made, which I think is a much more valuable percentage. It's the cupful ownership. So the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. There's 16 divisions of the smartest fantasy players out there. In the cupful, DeSmith is 50% owned. So in, I guess, 8 of the 16 leagues, people have been savvy enough to grab Casey DeSmith. Unfortunately, he's already available in my league, though. Brian, he is available still in our joint league. Someone dropped him. He's actually on waivers coming off tomorrow. I think he might be worth a waiver priority, and we don't even need him. We've got 4 good goalies, but at this point, it's like, how can you just let this guy go? We've got like Brian Elliott as one of our goalies. Who knows the next time he's going to get injured or suck, and then maybe DeSmith will be a better option. Yeah, it's not a great situation. As a Matt Murray owner, I feel like you're still not going to say people should drop him outright, right? But like maybe it's time to see if there's anyone in your league that's willing to take him in a trade and maybe sell low just to get something back for him. Like it's very concerning. Another guy I wanted to discuss on Pittsburgh, kind of just like Jaden Schwartz, Patrick Hornqvist is someone I wanted to bring up as a snoozer today, someone who people have been holding on to, probably drafted him and wondering if it's time to finally let go. But hey, he finally did something yesterday. He scored a goal, his first point after a 6-game drought. One reason to be optimistic that this will be the start of a run is that he was playing with Malkin yesterday after quite a long stretch where he was on the third line. He had been playing in the bottom 6, and I was like, oh, why do I want to hold this guy who's not doing anything and is getting crappy deployment, of course, aside from that top power play. Now he's back with Malkin. He scored a goal yesterday, so I feel like that means, just like Jaden Schwartz, I'm not ready to tell people to let go of Patrick Hornqvist, but I'm curious to know, Brian, like, how long would he need to slump before you'd be willing to cut him in most standard formats? I know Dave from the Stream Scheme podcast, which is a bonus podcast about streaming players in and out, just available to our patrons. He mentioned on the last one that Patrick Hornqvist is like a 55 or 50 point ceiling guy anyways. It's not as if he's worth so much, but he always feels like he's worth so much because he's getting you so many peripherals with the shots and the hits. Plus he could get on a run. So he's always playing with these great players. He's on this great power play. So yeah, what are your general thoughts on Hornqvist at this point? Do you agree with me that now he's a hold if you have him in an ad if he's in free agency while playing with Malkin?
First, we need to clarify, in some leagues, he's more valuable, Patrick Hornqvist, because he has nearly about 2 hits per game, about 3 shots per game, and it's a lot easier to hold him in those formats that count those because he's still doing stuff for you while you wait for him to score. In the others, Hornqvist seems like a fringe own at this point. For anyone who hasn't yet realized it, Hornqvist's days of playing with Sidney Crosby seem all but over as of about 30 games into last season. Since then, he's been playing mostly with Malkin and Hagelin rather than Crosby and whoever. Hornqvist started the season with Crosby for a couple games, but has since bounced around with the inconsistent line mates, and that might have contributed somewhat to his inability to produce, but now he has landed once again with Gino and Carl. There are obviously worse places to be in the Pittsburgh lineup. To fall from Sid's line to Gino's line, not such a bad thing to happen, but Hornqvist has also lost about a minute per game of even strength time on ice, and so that's a little concerning. Most of his numbers look sustainable too, so he's not on the wrong side of variance in too many spots either. There is one number that really stands out when I'm looking at what he's doing, and it's not a number I reference, but it really sticks out like a sore thumb. He is starting, of shifts of his that start with a face-off, just 35% of his shifts are opening in the offensive zone compared to 55% in the last few years, which hints at perhaps a more defensive deployment than in past years. It's obviously much nicer to start a shift by face-off in the other team's zone than your own. So perhaps that is a small factor here. Perhaps also Hornqvist could be picking up another point or two on the power play, but really that's about it. 55 points looks like the best case scenario for him. But if you don't get help from his hits or shots, and you figure you can drop him and he'll stay a free agent until he gets going again, and you'll have the option to re-add him, or let's say there are other 50, 55 point guys available for you to just stream in if you can't get Hornqvist back, I think you're in a position where you can drop him.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Like, if you're in a points-only league, then I would be considering dropping Hornqvist if you haven't already. Maybe you already have. I believe he's still here. Let me check this fun spreadsheet Marcus made. Hornqvist is, at this point, 93.75% owned in Cupful. I'm assuming that means he's owned in like 15 out of the 16 leagues. So someone has dropped him. I wonder if he'll get added at the start of next week after we've mentioned him on this podcast and after he scored that goal.
And in the Cupful, there is some residual value in hits and shots and hits and shots.
Yeah, shots are worth 0.5. A goal is worth 4.5. So it's actually not that bad. If you have a guy who's going to get you 3-4 shots a game, that could be worth a lot, especially if there's obviously the chance that he's going to score a goal on some of those shots every now and then. Okay, another goalie situation. Well, I like this pattern, Brian. We'll do a goalie, then a player on that team. We'll work our way through the league.
Yeah, before we leave Pittsburgh, Jake Gensel, I just want to mention him, a goal and 7 assists for 8 points in his last 8 games, which isn't something we really get to say about Jake Gensel a whole lot lately. He's up to 11 points in 15 games. Why? Well, he's a little more involved in shooting on the power play, albeit still on the second unit, so that's not so helpful. But even on this stretch, he's put up 0 or 1 shots in 4 of his 8 games. And he's combined for 13 shots in the other 4 games. So, like, if you're like thinking of adding him and his shots matter, it's sort of feast or famine in shots on goal rather than consistency, which is a bit of a downer. Anyway, Gensel seems to be settling in just fine alongside Crosby after being shuffled in and out of Sid's wing spot for much of last year. Looking like he's got a 55-point year ahead of him, even with limited power play opportunities. So just wanted to shout out Jake Gensel, who I might prefer to Patrick Hornqvist right now.
Though,
I definitely do prefer, actually.
Well, I don't know, Brian. I don't think if you've checked...
do it again.
Well, Brian, I don't know if you've checked the Dauber line combos recently. It's been a few games since Gensel's been playing with Crosby. That's why it's kind of interesting that he's been able to get these points. In the game yesterday, he was playing on a line with Phil Kessel and Riley Sheehan. Sidney Crosby was playing with Brian Rust and Dominic Simone. So it looks like the Pittsburgh lines are shaking up a lot. So maybe everything we're saying is going to be out of date by the time the next game happens. But yeah, right now Gensel's doing well, and it's especially nice if he's doing well away from Crosby. Maybe he could do even better when he gets back with him, if/when, I should say, of course. Okay, another team, another goalie that has been terrible. We've already talked about a bunch on the podcast, but like the situation is just getting worse and worse. Mike Smith was in nets on Wednesday for a 3-2 loss to Anaheim, where he stopped 21 of 24 shots, bringing him to a 5-5-1 record, an .872 save percentage. A lot of these goalies are having save percentages in the 870s, which is just absolutely terrible. David Riddick got the call yesterday, and he was perfect. He stopped 21 in a 1-0 win over LA, and he's now 5-1 with a .935 save percentage. David Riddick? What? So, Brian, it's like the same question as all these other guys. Like, how do Smith and Riddick compare to these other goalie situations like Murray and DeSmith? Like, can people drop Mike Smith at this point? It kind of seems like maybe like Riddick looks so good. Should he be owned in all rosters? Like, I'd actually forget about the St. Louis situation, because it seems like you've already said that you see that as a little bit different than the Pittsburgh one. But like, how does the Pittsburgh situation compare to the Calgary one for you? Can people be dropping Smith, and is Riddick someone that you'd want maybe even more than Casey DeSmith? Because I feel like Matt Murray has a better chance to bounce back than Mike Smith. That's my gut feeling.
It feels that way, doesn't it, with Mike Smith being as old as he is and looking as awful as he's been. But Matt Murray also hasn't shown us a whole lot more that we can depend on. I'll get to my full answer in just a minute, but first I want to mention, Elon, with you bringing up Mike Smith, you've now touched on 3 of the 5 worst goalies in the league so far this year, according to goals saved above average per 60 minutes. So Mike Smith, Jake Allen, Matt Murray. Can you guess who the other 2 goalies are in the bottom 5?
Of the worst goalies?
The worst goalies compared to what an average goalie would have done in their same minutes.
It's hard. I don't know. Tuukka Rask, is he in there?
Nope.
Okay, Arizona, Anaheim, Arizona, Boston, Buffalo, Calgary, Carolina. Oh, Darling or Mrazek or like one of those guys?
No, I'm also using a minutes threshold. So you have to think of guys who have started
Talbot.
At least 10 games. Nope.
I don't know. I get Reimer, James Reimer. He's been pretty bad. Is this interesting content for people?
Probably not.
Carey
Marc-Andre
Price?
Fleury. You would never guess. Fleury and Martin Jones are the round out the 5 worst goalies and goals saved above average so far this season. It's a very interesting group in that they're all on teams that are at least should have been playoff teams and potentially Stanley Cup contenders. Thank goodness for those goalies that the team in front of them is as strong as they are. Anyway, to Mike Smith specifically, there are 2 reasons for the Calgary Flames to continue throwing Smith in their net night in, night out. First, they're paying him $5.7 million this year. They made a bet on him and they want to follow it up. That could be one psychological reason, if not a good one. Second, the Flames haven't had anyone else in their organization put together a string of very good starts long enough to present themselves as a legit number 1 or 1A option if and when Mike Smith does falter, or when Brian Elliott faltered. I imagine if David Rittich disproves the second count there, that he can string together a sustainable run of good to great starts, Calgary would happily overlook the contract they've offered Mike Smith and be happy to go for the win instead. But until Rittich does that, I don't think Mike Smith is quite droppable yet. I still get the feeling that Calgary wants Smith to be the one who works out and isn't really rooting for him to continue faltering while Rittich takes the net. And the way that they've distributed starts lately speaks to that. But yeah, if you own Mike Smith, I wouldn't drop him yet because of that. But if you do own Mike Smith, you should be seriously considering a David Rittich handcuff or exploring another goalie option in free agency that could step in and provide you with some starts should Mike Smith finally get kicked out of the net because David Rittich mounts a serious challenge.
Yeah, and Rittich has been great so far. Like I said, like they can't be asking for anything more from him. So if Riddick's available in free agency, I feel like, okay, well, Brian, like Rittich versus Casey DeSmith. Is it? I almost feel like it's a coin flip. Like either of them, they're both looking great, and both of them seem similarly likely to steal the job. Do you concur? Or do you have like one that you like a lot better?
I mean, here's the thing with Rittich. He has a .935 on the season, but his last few starts have been, or appearances at least, have been hot and cold. 21 save shutout. Before that, he stopped 12 of 15. The game before that, he had a .966. The game before that, he came on, oh gosh, I don't have it here with me. I'm not sure if he came on, he must have come on in relief and stopped 12 of 15 shots. So like not just no consistency there. You're asking me whether I prefer Rittich to DeSmith. I'm going to lean DeSmith as the guy I want most out of all the backups we've mentioned so far. And I guess that just reflects how down I am on Matt Murray.
Right. I'm just down on Mike Smith. But yeah, I agree.
I'm so down on Mike Smith too. I just don't know. Like, I feel like I'm more likely to get 3 good starts in a row out of DeSmith than from Rittich. And that's really what it's going to take for either of these guys to make some headway in stealing starts long term.
Yeah, I just looked. Rittich is also only owned in 50% of Cupful leagues, which is a lot more than standard Yahoo, which of course means that Cupful leagues are smarter than most Yahoo leagues. So DeSmith and Rittich seems like a coin flick there, and we'll see how it shakes out. Just sucks to be a Matt Murray owner or a Mike Smith owner. Brian, I believe I'm a Matt Murray owner and you're a Mike Smith owner, right? In the Cupful?
Our lives are terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. I might at some point. I'm not holding on to Murray all season. Okay, if he's gonna be like this,
that's the struggle. Like I feel more comfortable dropping Mike Smith than I would Matt Murray. Do you think you could conceivably get to that point?
I don't know. Send me a trade offer. Anyone in tier 2 Ottawa for Matt Murray, you might be able to get him on the cheap because I don't want to deal with this tilt all the time. Okay. So Matt Tkachuk, we're on Calgary. I want to talk about Matthew Tkachuk because he's now up to 7 goals and 12 assists for 19 points in 17 games. Like phenomenal. When we did our almanac over the summer, Brian, I was higher on Matthew Tkachuk than you. I pegged him for 65 points. You had him down for 60 points. So far, we're both way off because he's playing at like a 90-point pace or higher. If you could change his number right now, would you do that? And where would you put it? Seems like barring injury, it's going to be like almost a sure thing that Matthew Tkachuk is going to break the 70-point club. And I could even see him being like a 75-point guy. Like he's on the top power play now. Like all the time before when he was more of closer to a 50, 60-point guy, he couldn't get. Calgary was being so weird and putting like not great players on their top power play. Now they seem to have it right. Tkachuk is doing so well there. And I feel like we've got a superstar here. And like we really blew it with our projections. You blew it a little more than me.
Yeah, good frame. I like that. A big part of Tkachuk's surge this year, too, is thanks to his 6 power play points already. That means he's on pace for like 28, 29. It's a really good place that he's found himself on the top power play locked in alongside Gaudreau, Monahan, and Lindholm. Last season, Tkachuk was occasionally cycled off or playing in a 3-forward, 2 defenseman setup that might not have been so optimal. And well, to be honest, I can't find too much reason. Like, I'm not saying those 6 power play points are unsustainable either. Like, he's there and he's doing really well. And I looked pretty hard to find a way to frame the 70 points as out of reach for him and to be contrarian and to say that what Tkachuk has been doing has been unsustainable. And in that research, I found 2 flags. The first is that Matthew Tkachuk's 5-on-5 IPP is way up at 90%, but it's also a little down on the power play, so that might wash out a little bit. And Tkachuk's shot rates are down from last year, which is an odd way for him to get to 7 goals in 15 games on a slightly high shooting percentage, but nothing wildly high either, really. Actually, if anyone can enlighten me, I was trying to split apart his shooting context to figure out where he's getting these high percentage shots in, because he has 2 goals on 21 even strength shots, or 5-on-5 shots, I should say. He has 2 goals on 13 power play shots on goal, but Tkachuk has 3 goals on 5 shots in other situations that I can't quite divine. I don't know if they're 4-on-4 or 6-on-5, but they're not shorthanded, and I don't think they're 3-on-3 because he has no game-winning goals. Anyway, wherever he's getting these 3 goals on 5 shots, that's a little high. That won't last, but it's clearly a minority context. Like, I'm happy to see that Matthew Tkachuk has nice, sustainable goal scoring in the most common situations. That's very nice. So, look, I brought up a couple of reasons, like red flags if I squint, but on the whole, I don't really see any. And 65 would now be my starting point. If I were putting down a new number for Tkachuk, I would fall between there and 70 with a number not rounded to the nearest 5 points. That would irk and confuse you, Elon, and demonstrate my apparent Nostradamic hubris.
Yeah, no one gets this joke you're saying, like, but whatever. Okay, yeah, I like rounding to 5 points. We'll have a big debate about it before we do our almanac next summer, if we do it, which was, by the way, the world's first ever NHL audio almanac. I don't know if you guys did that, but yeah, that was us. But okay, I like the idea of rounding to 5 points. But yeah, anyways, Matthew Tkachuk, fantastic player.
I'll round to 70. I'm there with you.
I might be at 7. I might be at 75.
Wow. That's great. That makes me feel better about being at 70.
I mean, Gaudreau is going to be a 90, just like we projected. We got him right. Tkachuk's there with him on the power play. Tkachuk's got good line mates. I think James Neal's with him now on the second line. Finally, Neal doesn't have to get bumped by Austin Czarnik or whoever it was that was getting on the second line ahead of him. Like, it's a good... he's in a really good situation. He's obviously a really good player. Brian, you know what else? You know who else is in a really good situation? Me.
Who?
Me, because I'm traveling around, I'm exploring the world. It's a lot of fun. And one fun thing about traveling is being able to check out some fun local events that are happening where you're going. And that's why it's really handy to be aware of one of our sponsors for this week's episode, which are our friends over at SeatGeek, because SeatGeek is the site that has the easiest way to buy tickets to any events or concerts or anything, sporting events, of course. And the thing is, like, generally getting tickets online can be far too complicated, right? Like, there's hundreds of sites, varying levels of reliability. You know the spiel. Like, you search, you're like, oh my god, how much is this ticket? What's the service charge? I don't even know. With SeatGeek, you're going to get a reliable price that you're going to be willing to pay. You could sort by value. You're going to see the actual price, like, after all the fees. You could actually see what the price is for tickets. Plus, it's like super fun to even just open the app and see what's going on around you. Like, I'm in Seattle. I just opened it up, and Brian, actually, here's a fun game for you. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but in America, people really like this game, football, American football. Yeah, it's like these guys and they bang their heads against each other. They get concussions. They're very popular. And so, okay, here's 2 games that are the top 2 games on SeatGeek right now in Seattle. You can see the Packers at the Seahawks on November 15th, or you can see Oregon State at Washington. Which game do you think is more expensive?
I'm going to guess Oregon State versus Washington, because you wouldn't be asking me this question otherwise.
No, it's a trick question. It's Packers at Seahawks. 191 to see Packers at Seahawks. Only $22 to see Oregon State at Washington. Both great deals, right? It looks like a really crazy time. People here love their football. And you know what? If you think 191 is too much to pay to go see a freaking NFL game, you could even see it a little bit cheaper if you're a listener of this podcast. Brian, tell us how.
Yeah, you'll get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. If you remember when you check out to enter the promo code KEEPING, all you need to do is download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code KEEPING, and that'll get you $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Life's an event. SeatGeek has the tickets.
They have the tickets. Well, actually, I don't think so, because I think there's intermediaries and I think they're like connecting you, but the tickets will get to you. That's the main thing. And they back it with some sort of guarantee. So you're good. You know who else is good? The Dallas Stars. I don't even know if that's true. Actually, they're fine. Ben Bishop has been fine actually himself. He has a 6-5-1 record, a .915 save percentage. That makes him actually a shining star compared to some of these other starters that we've discussed earlier, like a .915 save percentage. Go put him in the Hall of Fame. But at this point, Ben Bishop has had 3 straight starts or 3 straight games below a .909 save percentage, including an .853 save percentage outing in his 5-4 overtime loss to Nashville yesterday. And maybe more concerning if you're a Ben Bishop owner is the fact that he's only played in 3 of Dallas's last 6 games. Anton Khudobin has been getting regular starts and has been great. He had a 2-1 win over Toronto a couple weeks ago. Then he had a 2-1 loss to Boston on Monday, stopping 33 of 35. He was in net for a 4-3 win on Thursday versus San Jose, stopping 33 of 36. Khudobin overall in the season, he's at a .926 save percentage in 5 games, so better than Ben Bishop, and he's getting starts. So at this point, Brian, should people that own Ben Bishop be concerned? I mean, not to the level of these other guys, but it seems like maybe Bishop is not the guaranteed guy to get you starts most of the time for Dallas. Looks like they like Anton Khudobin maybe almost as much.
We've now seen 3 iterations of the Dallas Stars going back and forth between their goalies. Bishop, Khudobin, Bishop, Khudobin, Bishop, Khudobin over the last 6 games. But let's be clear at the same time, too, this isn't quite like a Murray, Smith, or Allen situation, because Ben Bishop hasn't been all that bad, really. He has almost 6 in 10 quality starts, not playing so terribly according to expectations. Still below it, but not so far below it. Definitely not as far below as the other guys we've mentioned that we're concerned about. And Bishop also has a .915 save percentage on the year, which is really about where we'd expect him to be. And I don't expect Anton the Owl Khudobin to reliably beat that .915 number when he does get his starts. But of course, for the time being, Khudobin is beating that number. So it sure looks like a timeshare in the short term. And Bishop owners should be aware, but not terrified about it.
Yeah, the thing also with Ben Bishop is he's brittle, or maybe that's like my impression of him. I know you told me over the summer that maybe I was like overblowing it a little bit, but I think Dallas is smart.
Reviewed like his exact injury numbers and saw no real reason to believe in the fact that he might be brittle.
All I'm saying is I think Dallas is smart to not play him too much, try to preserve him and not have him break whatever bone I think he would eventually break if they rode him too hard.
The smart thing for any NHL team to do would be to find 2 capable NHL goalies and play them both for, somewhere between 35 and 45 games each, split the workload, have them fresh, and then they're good to go come playoff time. And they always have a fresh guy running because they're well rested. And there seem to be enough goalies on the market to actually run with that strategy, but no one's really tried it, at least willingly.
I muted myself. Okay. Well, it seems like Dallas is maybe giving it a go, and Khudobin is up to the challenge. And so, yeah, we might be seeing a lot of this going forward. Of course, the other big news out of Dallas is that John Klingberg underwent hand surgery on Friday. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks. Really tough break for Klingberg and his fantasy owners. Of course, Klingberg was well on pace to approach 70 points again with 13 points in 16 games overall. So now we've got Miro Heiskanen. He was already on the top power play. I think we mentioned this on the last episode. He was playing, they were going 2 defensemen and 3 forwards, but now Miro Heiskanen is the 1 defenseman on the top power play. Very unlikely to get bumped while Klingberg is out. So yeah, it seems like a really good spot for him. And if he was a must own before, which I think he kind of was in a lot of leagues, now is he a must own? Of course, on the other hand, he hasn't been he still hasn't been dropping in a bunch of points. He actually only had 1 shot and no points in yesterday's game, though he did play a whopping 29 minutes and 26 seconds. So you've got to think with all that ice time, including all that power play ice time, he's going to start producing, especially with the pedigree that this guy has. So at this point, people just got to grab Heiskanen, right? While you answer, I'm going to check out what percentage of Cupful leagues he's owned in.
That's great information. Can't wait for you to share. In John Klingberg's absence, you have to look at it this way. Miro Heiskanen could play, say, 12, 15 games, and he's certainly going to be getting opportunities to show off what he can do on offense. It sure is disappointing that his first night sans Klingberg, he was running the top power play, playing 29 minutes, and only picked up that 1 shot. But still running the top power play and playing 29 minutes is a really great place to be for eventually putting up points. I would hope for at least half a point per game in Klingberg's absence for a Heiskanen. And he has upside, or at least I think he has upside for near Klingbergian production. So he is a must own at the moment. Everybody should be looking to own Miro Heiskanen. I own him in one league. I'm looking at him in another.
Yeah, another reason to expect some more production to come out of Dallas is I read that Alex Radulov could be back tomorrow on Monday. So that'll be good for Sagan and Ben, who haven't been like so amazing, and probably for Heiskanen as well, as that could be a very potent top power play when they have that third really strong piece there. Let's go now to the Boston Bruins. I know we've covered the situation to death. I think I even said on the last episode, after this, I'm not talking about it anymore. We've already said Halak's the guy, forget about it. But then Tuukka Rask decided to go on a leave of absence. Hopefully everything is okay with him, but obviously that warrants at least a short discussion. Word is it's only going to be for a few days. He may even be back next week. We don't know yet if like this leave of absence has to do with the fact that he's been like not playing great, or might be completely unrelated. But anyway, this gave Yaroslav Halak a chance to redeem himself after his first bad start of the year on Thursday, where he led in 5 goals on 19 shots before getting pulled versus the super high scoring Vancouver Canucks. And Brian, side note, I think people need to start being nervous about starting goalies against the Canucks, which is something I don't think we've ever said on the podcast, but this is one of the highest scoring teams in the league. Anyways, Halak got back in the net yesterday. He stopped 40 of 41 in a 5-1 win over the Leafs, and Bruins are playing again today against Vegas, and Halak got the start again. So that's like 3 starts in 4 days, and Halak once again is doing really well. I'm seeing here on ESPN, it's like 3-1. Let me get whatever. He's only letting 1 goal. He's probably doing very, very well. And he's just a great goalie. And there's really nothing else to say about that, except to ask you, at what point do people just drop Mike Smith? I mean, sorry, not Mike Smith. Well, him we already discussed about. At what point
so obsessed with dropping Mike Smith.
Yeah, do that. But if not, at what point do people start deciding whether or not they should drop Tuukka Rask, right? Like Halak is doing so well. Rask has been terrible. It's just becoming harder and harder to imagine Rask taking the job back. And if someone's listening to this podcast, they have Tuukka Rask, they're hearing us talk about Riddick and DeSmith and saying how good these guys could be. At what point do we just suggest, yeah, make the swap?
It looks like the job competition for number 1 in Boston is pretty much over. I'll still repeat what I said last week about the split between Halak and Rask, which is that I think the Bruins will forever be ready to give Tuukka Rask a shot after a bad Halak outing, and then let Rask hold the net so long as he keeps playing well. But that still makes it Halak's job to lose, as tenuous as it may be at times. And I also don't know how many sustained great starts Tuukka Rask can really string together if and when he does get those opportunities. So I'm looking, in terms of start, rest of season, who's going to get the most. I still think Rask is going to get more than DeSmith and Riddick, so you might not want to drop him just yet. But I wouldn't mind taking an upside swing at someone like DeSmith or Riddick, since Rask may not be worth a whole lot to you anyway in your league. Like if he's near bottom of the barrel for owned goalies, DeSmith probably offers more upside than Rask does. Rask obviously remains the conservative play. I still think he's going to get 30, 35 starts total by the end of the season. You can't say that about someone like DeSmith or Riddick, which is why I sort of prefer him. But if I really want to swing for the fences, if I have a lot of ground to cover, I might go with DeSmith.
So I read an interesting daily ramblings, Brian. I'm going off the cuff here. This is just something I thought of. I don't even remember which Dauber writer wrote it, but he was saying that when you play fantasy hockey, you have to play to win and not to like, come in 5th place or 3rd place or whatever. I wonder if you're holding Tuukka Rask and leaving someone like DeSmith or Riddick on free agency, letting someone else get them, are you really playing to win? Like we already know that Rask isn't going to be the starter. So you're saying maybe you get 30 starts from him. They might be bad starts from what we've seen from him. Meanwhile, I don't see why like someone like David Riddick can't, like he has a very decent shot to get more starts just because of how bad Mike Smith has been. So I think it's an interesting strategy. I know you're like a conservative guy and you win most of your leagues. So obviously I can't throw too much shade at the way that you play, but just something to consider. Like I just wonder if sometimes a move could be too conservative and you might miss out on it. And like, even in the worst case scenario, I don't know, obviously the worst case scenario, if you drop Tuukka Rask, is he becomes a starter again, and Boston's an amazing team. You're dropping like a top fantasy goalie, but it just seems so unlikely at this point. Yeah,
it just depends on the context of your league. If you're playing from first, you might play a little differently than if you're playing from 5th or 8th or last. And of course, if you look at it in points value and you say, well, by the end of the season, Tuukka Rask is going to have 20 fewer points than Casey DeSmith. Like if we could look at our crystal ball and know that, That's a 40-point swing that you just gave up on whatever opponent added to Smith. So it is a big deal. And part of the game is also trying to keep other people from being able to make these high upside plays to come at you. I just don't know that I'm quite at the point where I'm ready to think that Rask is for sure going to be so useless, like mostly useless, but not so useless as DeSmith has potential to be, right? There's a lot of downside there too, but I also don't know if you characterized my opinion like that properly. Like I said, Rask is the conservative play, but I would be very interested in taking that upside swing on DeSmith.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends. Like what you said actually was very interesting. Like if you're like not doing well so far, then you're maybe more inclined to want to take one of those swings, just like you said, like because you're not doing well, how things are going anyways. So I do sometimes see people do like say things like that and then make a terrible trade. But I need to shake things up, and it's like, okay, you made your team worse. Okay, now good luck winning. But I could talk about this stuff all the time. I love it in our summer episodes when we get to talk about general fantasy hockey strategy. But probably we need to move on to another team with a bad goalie situation. Actually, one that I wasn't even planning to talk about, but I saw it in the chat room here. Marcus is saying, man, the Devils are brutal right now. And the Devils, yeah, they're struggling. And also like Corey Schneider, like Jeepers Creepers, Brian, like he's bad. He's now let in 5 goals on 19 shots today. So that's a .737 save percentage. Winnipeg's currently winning 5-2. I'm surprised that Kincaid is not already in the net. Like I think this guy's done. And we already said it. We already said in the last episode. So forget about Corey Schneider. I'd totally be comfortable saying drop him. He's gonna burn you all the time. The Devils actually also, I saw this morning that they were going to be shifting up their lines. They put Travis Zajac on the top line with Hall and Palmieri, and Hischier got bumped. Not working out too well for them in this game. We'll see. We'll see how long that lasts.
Zajac's been on a nice little run though. Before tonight, he'd had goals in his last 3 games on 9 shots, which is more shots than we're used to seeing Travis Zajac taking. In a couple games before that run started, he had a couple assists. So he makes for a good streamer if the schedule works out. But right now, I have no idea, except for rest. I don't know why the Devils wouldn't be playing Keith Kincaid, or maybe I should reframe. I don't know why the Devils would be playing Corey Schneider. There was a moment, Elon, it's over now because the Devils have another shot, but both teams had given up 19 shots just over halfway through the game, and Winnipeg was winning 5-2. And that just tells you all you need to know about Corey Schneider and what he's doing for his team these days.
Yeah, not too much. One thing about the goalie strategy thing, I think I've said this on a previous episode, but sometimes if you're too afraid to drop Tuukka Rask for a DeSmith, then maybe you add DeSmith and drop someone else. And even though your strategy generally isn't to hold 4 goalies or whatever, hold 4 goalies for the next couple of weeks, see what happens, then maybe make the decision in 4 weeks whether or not to drop DeSmith or Rask for that final spot. So that's something you could always consider as well. Brian, we have 4 goalies in one league, and I still want to add DeSmith. I want to add the 5th goalie, though in this league there's a lot of bench spots, so it is valuable to have maybe a couple more goalies. But okay, the next team I wanted to talk about with a very concerning goalie situation, like not a goalie controversy over in Montreal. That's where I'm going. It's not a controversy because Antoniemi is Antoniemi, so it's not as if he's going to be stealing any starting jobs anytime soon. But like, good God, what is going on with Carey Price? The Habs are finally like getting some decent run support. Like they're scoring goals. They're giving Carey Price everything he should need, but this guy can't stop a puck. He's up to 5 straight games with a save percentage below 900 after the 6-5 overtime loss on Thursday. He has an .892 save percentage in 12 games on the season. Like, is this just another Corey Schneider situation? Like, is Carey Price just bad now? And that's it. I've been seeing some talk about, oh, it's like a mental thing. It's not physical. And I think it was like Marty Brodeur or some like famous old goalie was saying how like he still thinks that Carey Price is the best goalie in the league. But these numbers are ridiculous. Like, I'm just wondering, Brian, what you would do right now. There's not much you can do as a Carey Price owner in fantasy. Like if I was one, I'd be trying to probably trade him and then maybe regretting it later. But I feel like I'm of the mind right now. Like I don't want to hold on to these goalies because it's so concerning. And like Carey Price, like Montreal, the thing is that Montreal's looking like a decent team. Weber's going to be back soon, right? So that's maybe the one thing that if you're a Price owner, you could hold your hat on and be like, oh, once Weber comes back, everything will be fine. But I don't know if that's just like a fool's prayer.
It might be a fool's prayer. Carey Price so far is pitching the same quality starts ratio as Matt Murray. Price has finished with a sub 900 save percentage in 8 of his 12 starts, including his last 5, as you mentioned. Elon, I don't know what we can wait for with Price. Right now, you say maybe Weber will help fix things. Well, Montreal has the 8th lowest 5-on-5 expected goals against rates in the league, and Carey Price's own 5-on-5 expected save percentage is mid-pack amongst regular starters. So like this is pretty squarely on Carey Price Here's an interesting comparison, though. Connor Hellebuck doing about as bad in most comparable numbers. Hellebuck, by the way, has put up at least half decent numbers in barely 40% of his own starts and is barely keeping his head above 900. But Hellebuck somehow has a 909 that masks the differences in play more than Hellebuck might deserve between him and Price. But going back to Price, look, and Niemi, Price is still only 2 save percentage points behind Niemi, so it's pretty much the same thing you're going to get from each of them. Niemi remains no threat to the starter's job long term, but it's pretty wild that we're wondering if goaltending is the Achilles heel of this Montreal team rather than its only strength.
I know that's what it used to be. Like, at least they have Carey Price, so they're a threat to win any game they play. I remember saying that exact phrase on the podcast. Now it's the opposite. You've got guys like Max Domi. Domi's on a 6-game point streak, 3 of them multi-point games. He's up to 9 goals and 21 assists, 21 points in 17 games on the season. Like, Max Domi's having a career year. Unfortunately, he's not getting the goaltending from Carey Price. But I did want to bring up Domi, Brian. I know that he has a high shooting percentage, but you could take away 6 of his 9 goals and he'd still be on track to hit 70 points this season. Do you think he can do it? Are we going to be welcoming Max Domi to the 70-point club at the end of the season?
No. I'll cut to the chase. No. Whereas we were talking about Matthew Tkachuk and saying, I can't find a reason to think he's going to get knocked off this pace, Max Domi strikes me as a really great sell-high option. And remember last year, it's not that we don't like Max Domi. Even when he was struggling, I was still trying to believe that he could fall into a 60-point pace at some point. Never considered him as somebody who had 70-point upside, though. And this year, even with this start from Max Domi, I'm not ready to change my mind that he could be more than a 60-point player. At 5-on-5, Domi has 6 goals on 25 shots, so scoring on 24% of his shots, 93% IPP, almost 14% on-ice shooting percentage, and no noticeable bump in his underlying numbers either. He's getting a couple more scoring chances each night, so grant him that, but not so many more that any of these numbers, these super spiky percentages, make any kind of sense. And same story on the power play. 3 goals on 7 shots, 88% IPP, on-ice shooting percentage, actually okay for the power play, but no noticeable bump in any of his individual offensive generation stats. So red flags everywhere. There can be red flags. Something's going to give here with Max Domi, and it's going to be rough for anyone wanting to hang on tight to him throughout the bad times likely to come, or at least not the bad times, but the fall off. He's not this good. And so Max Domi presents an excellent opportunity for his owners to cash in and acquire another legit, any guy who you can count on for more than 65 points. That's someone you want.
Interesting. Okay. And you could always, did I freeze here?
No.
Oh, okay. My screen froze. Interesting. And of course, you could tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson. Let us know if you have a specific Max Domi trade you want us to weigh in on. Don't sell too low now. Though, of course, you could ask the Jonathan Toews owner in your league if he wishes that he or she wishes that they traded Jonathan Toews back when they had the opportunity when he was on an amazing streak just like this. And they'll say, oh, I wish I did. Now I have this slumping guy that Elon and Brian are going to talk about later in the show as someone that's a snoozer that maybe you have to think of dropping. So, but Max Domi, I don't know. Obviously, right now he's riding high, but that's maybe what separates the great from the good fantasy players, being able to take advantage of these streaks, though obviously right now you're really enjoying his production and couldn't blame you for just holding on and riding this wave. Another team, Brian, let's talk about something positive now. All these crappy goalies here, but who's been under the radar pretty great lately? Jimmy Howard of the Detroit Red Wings. His 3-2 win over the Rangers on Friday was his 4th win in a row. He's now 5-5-1 on the year with a very solid .918 save percentage. A .918 save percentage isn't going to, win you trophies, but that makes you an above average goalie in the league. And, there's not much more I could say about Jimmy Howard. Kudos to anyone who drafted him late or picked him up in free agency. With goalies at this point, why? I feel like such a dummy that I drafted Matt Murray and Jake Allen, the couple. I could have gotten Jimmy Howard in the last round, and I'd be better off for it. Plus, I'd have some amazing skater, pretty good skater that would have drafted in that spot where I took Murray and Allen. So I don't know. I feel like next year just frickin' punt. Dave said it in the chat room here, punt, #punt goalies. It's hard not to recommend that. Wait till the end of the draft. Get a starter. You never know.
Yeah, and when you say Jimmy Howard is great, let's just remember that it's all relative, right? A .918 save percentage isn't great. It is enough to rank him 11th in the league in save percentage, which is probably where a .918 belongs. And Jimmy Howard is earning it at 5-on-5 because his shorthanded save percentage is not propping him up at all. There's no crazy overperforming on the penalty kill. But Jimmy Howard certainly is outperforming his 5-on-5 expected save percentage by a modest amount. Do I think he can keep it up? Well, Howard's a guy who has outperformed his expected save percentage just once in the last 4 years, and that was back in 2015-16. But he also hasn't been so far below it in any of the others. So Howard is someone who could hover around league average. Elon, it's funny because we're taking points off of goalies in our rankings and our tierings left and right for being old and having injury history. And Howard ticks both of those boxes, yet he's still doing okay. Goalies, how about him? Anyway, Howard is a middling goalie at the end of the day on a sub-middling team. I very much appreciate that he has only blown 3 out of 12 starts this year. That steadiness that's been hard to find around the league. Just don't fool yourself into thinking that Howard is a great goalie in a great situation, but very, very serviceable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would take this, but if someone were to throw me a trade of Jimmy Howard for my Matt Murray, I would, I don't know. It's like, I'm at that point, right? I'm tilting. Okay, and I love this term, by the way. The average time of on ice people who I've been talking about a lot on the last few shows. They have this amazing Twitter account. They actually took over our Twitter account yesterday. It was so fun, amazing, funny tweets the whole way through. It's at AVG Time on Ice, I think, on Twitter, and they have a great blog. We've talked about them a lot, but yeah, they introduced this term to me. Tilt was apparently a gambling term. Maybe my best friend Daniel Negreanu can let us know if he's ever used this term. I guess it's the idea of when you've already like played your chips, so you've already sort of like you're in and you can't make any more decisions. And you just have to watch and hope that luck falls your way. And then you're tilting when things are not going the way you were hoping. I feel that all the time as a Matt Murray owner. I'm telling you that.
Elon, so would you accept Matt Murray for Jimmy Howard?
That's what I just said. I mean, I wouldn't like mash accept, but I would definitely have to stop and think about it. Maybe throw in a sweet, if you're going to send me this trade offer, maybe throw in someone else along with Jimmy Howard. If
I own Jimmy Howard in your league, I feel like I would try that.
Yeah, also in the cupful, don't forget that there's not as many points for wins as in most fantasy leagues, and I'm very proud of that, actually, for the cupful. I think we designed a very cool league where we give a lot more to a goalie playing well and playing a lot versus necessarily winning games. So even though Detroit isn't as great a team, that Jimmy Howard could still be a valuable guy if he's going to get a lot of saves. Of course, a really valuable guy in our format that maybe isn't as valuable in other formats is Craig Anderson, who's having an okay season, like better than some of these other starters. He's 7-5-3 with a .905 save percentage, but check this out. He's leading goalies in saves so far, and it is not close. He's got 523 saves in 16 games. Next comes John Gibson with 467 saves, and then there's Henrik Lundqvist at 407 saves. We're talking like over 100 saves above the third place guy. Ottawa's letting in a lot of shots, and Craig Anderson's stopping an okay number of them. So at this point, I feel like he's someone that I'm happy. He's actually my third goalie in the cupful, and he's been pretty great for me. And if your league count saves, I feel like you're really happy with Craig Anderson because he's like helping you run away with the categories, like having Borowiecki in a league that counts hits.
Totally. And here's a really fun one. I think this is my favorite fact of this episode and maybe of our season so far. Right now, the Ottawa Senators are allowing more shots per game than any NHL team ever. This is their Stanley Cup, the shots on goal against per game. The Sens are presently averaging 38.6 shots on goal against per game. For context, edit point. The Senators are presently averaging 38.6 shots on goal against per game. For context, Anaheim is the next worst, a couple shots behind, and the only teams to ever finish a season averaging above 38 shots on goal against the 1962-63 New York Rangers and the historically bad 74-75 expansion Washington Capitals. So in leagues that count saves, Craig Anderson is holding more value in that category than anyone ever, including New York's Gump Worsley or Washington's Ron Lowe, Michel Belhumeur tandem. And by the way, Michel Belhumeur, what a fantastic last name to play goaltender for that 74 Washington Capitals team. And given all these shots, Craig Anderson is still managing to perform just below an average NHL goalie's capabilities given his particular workload. But that's even kind of an unfair measure since few, if any, NHL goalies have ever really faced the kind of workload that Craig Anderson is. He deserves all the credit in the world for facing all these pucks and stopping as many as he is.
Yeah, kudos, Craig Anderson. That's how it goes when it's a season that starts with an even number. Craig Anderson plays well. We talked about all of that in that almanac I talked about before. I don't know why I'm bringing that up so much, considering it's not even for sale anymore. So Ottawa, more about the Ottawa Senators. They got Brady Tkachuk back into their lineup last week after he missed around a month. He had nothing in his return versus Vegas on Thursday, aside from a shot, 5 hits, 3 blocks. This guy's going to be a peripheral stud. Yesterday, he scored a goal and he had a power play assist in the 6-4 win over Tampa. He was playing with Stone and Colin White and got some decent power play time. Of course, Ottawa played today, so maybe I should give you guys some more updated numbers. Ottawa lost 5-1 to Florida. It wasn't Anderson in net, by the way. They were playing McKenna. Is it Mike McKenna?
Mike McKenna.
Mike McKenna was in net. Brady Tkachuk, no points, 4 hits. So yeah, not the best game for him, 2 shots, but this guy seems like a stud. Like at this point, after yesterday's game, he has 8 points in 7 games, a higher pace than his brother, I believe, or maybe very close to it. So how do you expect Brady to be rest of season? Is he like the 3rd best forward to own on the Sens after Mark Stone and Matt Duchene? Is he better than Dzingel? Like at this point, I feel like Brady Tkachuk is looking like he's going to be a really valuable asset in fantasy, especially in multi-category leagues.
Before I answer that, you said, is he better than Dzingel? Let's quantify Dzingel, who is now officially on a 5-game point streak with goals in 4 consecutive games. He is maintaining about a 50% shooting percentage over that stretch, so don't get too excited, but it is something, and that's a bar for Brady Tkachuk to clear. He's up there with Ryan Dzingel. He has 4 goals on his last 18 shots, 15% on-ice shooting percentage, also kind of concerning. So those are 2 markers of unsustainability there. But perhaps Brady Tkachuk can make a run at 2nd place in Calder voting.
You ended while I was researching things. Oh. Sorry, everybody. Okay, I'm going to just look up his percentage owned in the cupful.
Do you want me? I can blather on.
No, I'm ready now. Just my computer's going a little slow. Okay. Yeah, I guess that is up for grabs. I posted on our Facebook group, like, what are the odds that Elias Pettersson doesn't win the Calder Trophy? I was putting like 100-1. That might even be like too low, right? Like Pettersson is running away with this thing. I feel like this is the earliest in a season that the Calder Trophy has been wrapped up. And don't forget, Connor McDavid didn't win the Calder Trophy. It was Panarin that season because McDavid got injured. Anyways, Brady Tkachuk, he is owned in 42% of Yahoo leagues. Brian, you want to guess his percentage ownership in the cupful?
93.7.
Hundo. It's 100.
Wow.
Everyone wants Brady Tkachuk, and I actually am the owner of him in Tier 2 Ottawa. He's still on my IR, and I got killed this week. He wouldn't have helped, and now Ottawa doesn't play again until Thursday. So now I have that really tough decision where I could leave him in IR until Thursday rather than having him in a roster spot that's not getting games, but then I can't make any ad drops and streams earlier in the week, which is annoying. But I think I'm going to leave him there and then hope that my roster is going to do well enough for me. But no one cares about that. Let's talk about another player on the Ottawa Senators. I know I've been going 1 goalie, 1 player in every team, but how can we not talk about freaking Thomas Chabot, who, at least going into today's game, he had 22 points in 17 games, which was good for 4th in league scoring, a tie for 4th. Like, I'm not talking about 4th amongst defensemen, right? Like 4th overall in league scoring. You got Bergeron, Rantanen. Again, this is before today's game because Boston played as well. But I hear Bergeron and Rantanen both with 24 points, McDavid with 23 points, and then Chabot, Giroux, and McKinnon with 22 points.
Wow.
Insanity, Brian. Like, as a Erik Karlsson owner, again, this is one of these things where it's like maybe someone in the chat room will tell me I'm dumb to even say that I would ever get this offer, but I'd have a hard time not accepting an offer of Chabot for EK65 if that got thrown at me, which I feel like it almost certainly will not with the way both of their seasons are going. But like, how is this happening? How good is Thomas Chabot? Like, I know that probably, like, I just feel like Wet Blanket Brian is going to say, sell high time if you could get a 50-point defenseman or something. But like, how? Like, you haven't said it yet. And I'm already like, Brian, how? No, it's not. And we had a tweet from @ChrisTraveler saying, just a thought, change the cast to keeping Chabot. And like, we've gotten that actually a lot lately. And you know what? We can't call it that because neither of us have Thomas Chabot in our fantasy leagues because we were dumb and we didn't draft him. And if it's a keeper league, we may never have the chance.
So if I'm in your league, Elon, I'm throwing that offer of Chabot for Karlsson at you. Chabot has been incredible, and Ottawa can thank their lucky stars that they picked Chabot, and he's ready to pan out the moment Karlsson leaves the lineup. That said, Chabot is not Erik Karlsson in a few ways. Karlsson has been great in every way outside of the score sheet, but Chabot has actually been better than Karlsson in some ways. First, One thing that certainly won't continue for Shabbat is an even strength on ice shooting percentage that's up at 15%. That's like a good 6% above where it could and should be. And that's what's helping Shabbat rack up plenty of extra assists. And by the way, the breakdown of those assists, 4 primaries, 13 secondaries, which is not a great ratio. That's not a sign that he is genuinely creating a whole lot of offense. It's a sign that, hey, he's getting in on a lot of goals that he might not have had such a huge hand in creating. And so maybe he's getting a few more points than he should because of that. But one thing for Shabbat that is also high, but I'm wondering if it could hold, is Shabbat's shooting percentage. He's now scored 14 times in his career on 143 shots. That's a 10% shooting percentage, and it would rank as one of those top-end converting defenseman shooting percentages. Ryan Ellis is the example we most often bring up. There's a very small group of defensemen in the league who can convert above 8% of their shots. But I wonder if Shabbat is going to be one of those guys. 143 shots is not a big enough sample size to know, but he's like halfway there to making a sample size that would make me believe to some extent that he's got a shot. And one thing that Shabbat has on a lot of members of that high percentage converting group of blue liners is that Shabbat takes more than a couple shots per game on average. And at 5-on-5, Shabbat's attempting and registering more shots on goal than Erik Karlsson had in any of his final 4 seasons as a Senator. So how about that? Anybody looking to make the direct comparison can proudly say that Shabbat's rate stats for shots and shot attempts are higher than Erik Karlsson's from the last 4 years. So that makes this legit exciting, what Shabbat's doing. I am very interested to see what Shabbat is going to do once his on-ice shooting percentage falls to a more reasonable level, once he's not relying so much on secondary assists. I imagine he still lands around where like 45, 50 points, which I know is boring, and 50 even seems like strong, but there's just a lot going really right for him. Seems like a pretty good sell high candidate, Elon. Are you mad?
I'm not mad. I knew it was coming. I've been prepped for this ever since I started prepping the show. I've been prepped for this ever since I started getting points. But the thing is, when you say like 40 point or whatever, 50 point ceiling, whatever exactly you said there, it's like right now he's like above a point per game, right? So even if he slows down a lot, he could still be like a 60 point defenseman. I don't know, maybe at this point, like Tyson Barrie level, and we'll get to him in a little bit. I love mentioning players, then teasing that we're going to talk to them about. What's with Tyson Barrie being off power play 1? That makes no sense. We'll get
before we leave Colorado, before we get to Colorado, who aren't even next, but before we leave Ottawa, can I just shout out quickly Colin White, who's on a bit of a run?
Who's injured?
Yeah, he missed like the second half of the first period, and it turned out he was injured. But when he's healthy, his production has been a pleasant surprise because he was a highly touted prospect for Ottawa, and then expectations really dropped about the moment he started playing NHL games last season, and expectations were low going into this one. But now he's entered not own territory, but stream territory, thanks to 3 goals and 1 assist for 4 points in his last 3 games, 10 shots over those 3 games for Colin White. His time on ice was going up, had an occasional top power play role. So these are all promising things that in deeper leagues, Colin White, not an ad, but a stream.
Yeah, or maybe now he is an ad. If like apparently he got injured, like you said, in today's game against Florida. And so if you could stash him in your IR, like if he's in free agency right now and you could get him, if you're going to be adding someone else anyways, maybe add Colin White first, stash him in your IR plus spot, and then add someone else. And then you could wait and see if maybe you want to hold Colin White later on. So there's always that opportunity when a player gets injured. Brian, so okay, if you are like me and you're on tilt because you didn't draft Thomas Chabot and you're going to regret it for the rest of your life, the good thing is you could still have Thomas Chabot on one of your fantasy teams. And the way to do that is to play daily fantasy with our sponsor for this week's episode, which are our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is a way to play daily fantasy hockey. It's like fantasy hockey, but for everyday fans, just like you listeners. You also play fantasy hockey for hardcore fans. It's for everybody. There's new contests starting every day. You play whenever you want. You play every single day if you want. And every single day, you have a completely new roster, new players to cheer for. There's something for everyone. Lots of contests to choose from. Starting at just $1, you pick a contest, you choose your team, and then you watch your score in real time. Brian, we've been doing our FanDuel Keeping Karlsson Listener League every single week. And last week, Brian, for I think the first time ever, you and I both landed in the top 5 and landed in the money. It was a fun matchup on Tuesday. I came close to doing a lot better, actually. I had Jack Campbell, and he was pitching a shutout going into the third period. If he would have held that shutout, I would have even beat you, Brian. But in the end, I had 210 points. You had 213 points. Maybe I shouldn't be pinning my success on Jack Campbell having a shutout, though he has been pretty freaking good recently. The winner, though, was Boss Haas, who came in first.
Oh, do that again. The winner, though.
The winner, though, was neither of us. It was Boss Haas, who came in first. Frankly, I'm happy to have a winner that wasn't a name that's making fun of me, but Boss Haas did a great job. He grabbed Pedersen, Braden Point, Nikolai Goldobin, like all of them had great games. Yanni Gourde, like it was like my lineup was really good. Like almost all my players got points, but Boss Haas was able to pick all the guys as well. He, of course, had Thomas Chabot, who for Ottawa's 7-3 win over New Jersey had 2 assists, 1 block, a goal, a power play assist, 9 shots. Obviously, that was a winning guy to own right there. Man, Chabot's good and FanDuel's good. It's a lot of fun. So, Brian, why don't you tell people how they could get in on our weekly FanDuel Listener League?
Yeah, and draft anyone who you wish you had on your fantasy team. I had Chabot. I actually made a lineup that paid homage to some of the Ottawa Senators Uber crew. So I had Duchesne, Chabot, and then I also had Dzingel and Craig Anderson in there. Craig Anderson counts because his name was mentioned inside the Uber. And if only he got a shutout, Elon, I would have been first. Just 3 fewer goals given up. I would have been laughing. Anyway, if you would like to join us for this week's listener contest on Tuesday, all you need to do is head on over to fanduel.com/Karlsson, spelled the same way as Eric's last name. That's fanduel.com/Karlsson. If you're new, you'll also get a $5 deposit bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Come play with us. It'll be fun. Pick a name that tries to embarrass one of us. I'm not even going to mention the name of the runner-up from last week. I'm just really glad that Boss Haas, is that the Sonics shutout, by the way? That Boss Haas held the league. FanDuel.com/Karlsson. Contest opens early Tuesday morning, around 9 or 10 a.m. So get in then.
Get in before the getting's good. What's that
Limited spots available.
There you go. So let's get back to talking fantasy, and we're still in goalies, Brian. I'm having fun here. This is the goalie show, so you could name. I got your episode title right there. That's not really a reference to anything. But there's the Bleeding Heart Show, is a very great song by the New Pornographers that I like. So you see the goalie show. It's a very not a great reference.
There's also the album The Eminem Show.
Oh yeah, that's true. Anyhow, okay, it would be easier with these episode titles if we had episode art to go along with each one of them. If someone wants to make us an episode art for every single show, that would be pretty fun. But let's go to Arizona. Okay, so one goalie who actually there was a game today by Arizona and he did really well. I was gonna say one goalie who hasn't taken advantage of a recent opportunity that was given to him is Darcy Kemper, because Ranta, who I think might be approaching Band-Aid boy status at this point. He's currently out with a lower body injury, and a lot of people jumped on Kemper, hoping he'd continue the great little run that he was on after the first 3 games of the season. He was doing really well. We even talked about him on a recent podcast with Arizona doing so well and Kemper getting some starts with that. He could be a really decent backup goalie to own. At least I did. I think you poo-pooed that pretty quickly. But then, alas, he reminded everyone that he is, in fact, Darcy Kemper. He let in 5, 5, and 4 goals in his 3 games last week. He also played today, though, and I believe Arizona won. They beat the Washington Capitals. So isn't it so crazy, fantasy hockey? Like, you assume a goalie on a back-to-back when he's played both games, playing against the Washington Capitals, that's going to be the worst game. Turned out to be the best game. I'm sure he was on a lot of people's benches, but there you go. For as long as Antti Ranta's out, Darcy Kemper seems like a decent guy to own because this Arizona team seems pretty good. Though, Brian, I know that you're probably feeling pretty smug because you commented on the show, like on Facebook, that he's bad. And I was suggesting to people, yeah, grab Kemper. Like, Arizona's looking good. He's playing well. And you were like, nah, he's good. He's going to blow you up. And you were totally right for a lot of the games.
And one of the reasons I said that was because it wasn't just Darcy Kemper. It was Darcy Kemper on the road against Philadelphia, then Pittsburgh and Washington on a back-to-back. I barely want Darcy Kemper in average circumstances, and of course want him even less in those, but it's incredible that on the second half of a back-to-back is when he decides to stop 38 of 39 shots against on the road at Washington to pick up his lone win in his last 3 games. So you're adding him at your own risk. Next week, he's at Detroit, then at home against Nashville and Boston. So his schedule isn't a whole lot easier, except for maybe that Detroit game. Hopefully, Ranta comes back soon. Elon, I'm actually curious, where would you rank Kemper amongst the DeSmiths and Riddicks of the world? Because we still don't really have a sense of when Ranta's coming back.
No, I mean, no, it's a whole different situation. Like, Ranta will be back. He's only day-to-day, and he's the for sure #1 goalie. So I would, if all these guys are available, give me a guy who might potentially steal the starting job like DeSmith or Riddick over someone like Darcy Kemper. Brian, come on. I'm not going to set you up to make fun of me that much. That would be crazy. One reason why people might want to make fun of me is because I recommended Alex Golgoski last week. He was on a good run, but he didn't do so well in the couple games he played, and then he got hurt. So actually, you can't be too mad at me because you ended up stashing him in your IR and you got someone else to replace him. Okay, but keep in mind, Golgoski's injured, and once he comes back, maybe he'll be someone to consider. Maybe someone also just like Colin White that maybe you want to stash in IR if you could get him, and then have the opportunity to get him back once he starts playing again. Brian, so another thing that it looks like you were right and I was wrong about was my take that Corey Crawford could be a tier 2 guy. Like, I remember Crawford came back. We had an episode of our show, and I was saying, did we blow it so badly with Corey Crawford, saying that he's like a tier 5 guy in Schmorgolisborg when really he should be a much higher? He had that great couple of games, but lately he has been terrible, terrible, terrible. Crawford's currently on a 5-game losing streak, bringing him to a 3-6 record and .901 save percentage on the season. He was playing badly. The Blackhawks were playing badly, and John Quenneville got fired as the coach. So I guess that's
Joel Quenneville got fired.
Joel, yeah. Maybe let me say that again. John Quenneville's a player, right? I'm not going to edit that. Whatever. People need to know what really happened on Sunday night when Elon was in Seattle. And yeah, isn't John Quenneville a player? I think on the New Jersey Devils.
I think he plays for New Jersey, and there is a family relation. Good job. Can you name the other Quennevilles with NHL experience?
No, I definitely cannot.
David and Peter.
There you go. There you go. Well, one of those Quennevilles currently doesn't have a job in the NHL, and that is Joel Quenneville, because he was fired. I wonder if Crawford would have played better if Quenneville would still have a job. It seems like this team, though, may just not be that good. Like, we had all this excitement about the various D-men getting shots on the top power play at the start of the season. None of them, to me, seem worth owning at this point. Like, maybe Brent Seabrook, who's been holding that top power play spot. He has 5 points in his last 10 games, which is pretty solid. That's worth owning in a lot of leagues. But all these guys like Gustafsson, Yoki Haru, Duncan Keith, they all have just 3 assists in each of their last 10 games. None of them getting, like, showing anything that makes them worth owning. I know, Brian, you're like a lover of Duncan Keith, but I think in most leagues, I don't know if you'll agree with me, I say like he's droppable in most leagues. He was dropped in my cupful division, and no one has added him. So yeah, I don't know. What else do I have to say before I send it to you? Like, the only thing I could say, I guess, is the forwards on Chicago also aren't looking that good. Like, aside from, of course, Patrick Kane, who's been amazing. He has 21 points in 16 games on the season. But like all these guys like DeBrincat, Taves, Schmaltz, like all these guys who were like doing well at the start of the year, especially like DeBrincat and Taves, they've slowed down big time. Like, who of these players, Brian, are you expecting to bounce back, if any? Like, is Crawford someone you'd consider dropping if like a Jimmy Howard type is available? Like, how bad is Crawford, like, based on his situation? I don't know. Maybe you could just give your general thoughts on all of these Chicago guys that I've brought up. While you do that, I'm going to look up how many cupful leagues Duncan Keith is still owned in.
Yeah, so I'm not, my love affair with Duncan Keith, I was hopeful for him going into this season, and it's the same problem as last season, which I left the possibility open for, but I thought he would get enough top power play time and successful top power play time to overcome at least a chunk of the adversity he now faces, being essentially the one to shoulder a huge chunk of the defensive load in Chicago. Look, it wasn't Joel Quenneville's fault that he got fired. It's insane that Quenneville's the one who loses his job after making as much lemonade as he could out of the lemon of a roster that's been provided to him by Stan Bowman, who traded Panarin to acquire a $6 million Brandon Saad, who's doing well lately, by the way, but still $6 million Saad. And then he let go of needed defensive hands like Hjalmarsson, even Jordan Osterley, locked up Seabrook long-term, Keith long-term, cap crippling long-term contracts. Anyway, Quenneville did what he could. I'd be surprised to see any coach do much better, especially the new one. Well, not especially the new one, but like, why would things get better in Chicago? Like, Chicago was overperforming at the start of the season with Quenneville, and Crawford was overperforming with them, or maybe just performing. And now he had a poor run, but Chicago has no choice but to lean on their goalie. It's not his fault. I still think Crawford is probably going to win about as many games as Howard with a better save percentage. So I would still prefer him if you can ride out this slump. As for other Chicago players, Patrick Kane, we should mention, is playing on both power plays at the moment. He saw 97% of Chicago's power play minutes on Saturday at Philadelphia, and it's not just because the top unit got all the time. He played on both units the second 2 games ago as well. And the other guys you mentioned, Elon, like Taves and Schmaltz, they'll all bounce back to where I think we initially projected. This is a lower point than they deserve to be at right now for all the Chicago players, just as they were at higher points than they deserved before. The one Chicago player I would like to buy low on is Alex DeBrincat, who who I think has a higher capacity to bounce back, or at least higher upside once he does bounce back than anyone else on the roster.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now would be a really good time to make a trade offer to an Alex DeBrincat owner. Maybe like if you have I don't know, like a Brady Tkachuk. I don't know. I'm just throwing out names. Or tweeted us at Keeping Karlsson.
I would do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if well, it depends also on the categories for your league. But yeah, for offense, I think Alex DeBrincat, he showed us that he has the capacity to be really, really good. We were high on him going into the season, and he could, he's still on top power play with Patrick Kane, and I guess not playing on a line with him, but playing with Jonathan Toews. So it's a good spot for him, and it'll be fun to watch and see if the Chicago team could do anything to bounce back, or maybe they're going to be tumbling down to maybe candidate to get that #1 draft pick, because some of the teams that we thought were going to be really bad are doing okay, like Vancouver and Detroit and Ottawa, winning some games. Montreal would be winning more games if Carey Price knew how to stop a puck. So, okay, that's it for the goalie talk. Let's go to some injuries and oucheries. Now, I wanted to mention that Brock Besser is dealing with a groin injury. He's week to week. They're saying he's going to have a full recovery. Like, it's not going to be a super long-term thing. Still, tough break. Like, he had that big 4-point game versus Colorado a couple weeks ago. That's the last game he played. So it would have been nice to see how he could have continued after that. The top line yesterday for Vancouver was Pettersson, Jake Virtanen, and Nikolai Goldobin. Goldie, as I've been calling him, and I don't know if anyone else does, but I just like that. And it reminds me of Fiddler on the Roof. Goldie, do you love me? I'm going really off the rails here, but Goldie had a three-game point streak broken yesterday versus Buffalo, though he did take 3 shots. Goldobin has 6 assists in his last 6 games now. You've got Jake Virtanen, though. I think he's getting all the buzz lately. He scored for the 2nd game in a row and took 6 shots yesterday. He has 5 goals in his last 6 games. Another guy in Vancouver to keep your eye on, Louis Eriksson, is looking like maybe he's doing something that is similar to what was expected as a return for Tyler Seguin. I don't know, but he has 2 straight multi-point games and 4 goals and 3 assists in his last 4 games overall, which is insane. So if you streamed in Louis Eriksson last week, you really benefited from it. Brian, how would you rank these 3 Canucks forwards if people want to stream one in for the Canucks 4 games next week of Virtanen, Goldobin, and Louis Eriksson?
I would rank them Goldobin, Virtanen, and Louis Eriksson. Shotgun Jake causing tall boy sales to spike with 5 goals on 20 shots over his last 6. So that might be a reason to want him a little more than Goldobin, because, look, 5 goals on 20 shots, not a sustainable shooting percentage, but a new trick that Virtanen has added to his game on this streak is that he's actually taking shots on a consistent basis. Jake has taken at least 2 shots in 5 of these last 6 games he's played, and he'd only done that 4 times in his first 12 games. So look, the goals aren't going to keep coming at this rate for Shotgun Jake, but if he keeps racking up shots on goal, then they will come at least a little more often than they have in the past, and then Virtanen will be able to help your team a little more, even on nights when he doesn't score a goal. But I still want the guy playing with Pettersson. I'll go Goldobin.
Well, like I said, it's been Virtanen and Goldobin playing with Pettersson.
I realized that just as I said it. I don't know. I think Goldobin's got better upside.
Yeah, you got to watch the power play also. After Monday and Tuesday, I'm gonna have to drop someone to bring Brady Tkachuk in on Thursday. So Goldobin, I have on my roster. I've really enjoyed having him. It's going to be a tough choice. It's pretty exciting to be seeing the Canucks scoring all these goals, and even from the defenseman now. I remember when Alex Edler got injured, we were talking about Derek Pouliot, who it seemed like he was going to be getting the top power play. He's been getting it, but he's been doing nothing. Ben Hutton actually has been also getting a lot of power play time himself, and he has 5 points in his last 6 games. But of course, because hockey's weird, the defenseman on Vancouver that's been getting the most points lately is Eric Goodbranson, who's currently riding a 5-game point streak. No power play time to speak of, but he's piling on the points. Brian, who is this guy, Eric Goodbranson? No, there's no chance he keeps this up, right?
You must not be on Canucks Twitter too often to not know who Eric Goodbranson is. Eric Goodbranson, to summarize, is every bad general manager's favorite defenseman. He's got natural size or something like that. He's from Ottawa. He was drafted 3rd overall in 2010. 3rd overall, yeah, in a draft that saw teams miss on nearly every defenseman taken in the first round. Other defensemen taken in the first round in 2010, Dylan McElrath, Brandon Gormley, Tarek Forbert, Jared Tenorti, Mike Pissick. Those are the misses, although you could argue that Pissick and Forbert are serviceable guys. But they're misses in the first round. Cam Fowler, the lone defenseman taken in the first round, who might have justified his draft position. Anyway, Goodbranson, I spent more time talking about his draft class than him because he's not very good, and this point streak will not continue.
So you mean to say Goodbranson more like bad Branson?
More like goodbye.
Okay.
That was good, though.
Okay, we're doing our best here. Okay, we're an hour and a half into a fantasy
Are
hockey
you
podcast
team
here.
goodbye or team bad Branson?
Yeah, hashtag let us know on Twitter. Brian, a lot of people were team Elon for something that we talked about last week, and now I forget what it was. But I said,
By the way, if you ever have your tweet liked by the Keeping Karlsson Twitter account, that just means that Elon agreed. Like you're agreeing with what Elon has said. If your tweet goes unliked, it's because you're presenting my opinion, which I notice and appreciate.
oh, actually, no, you know what? I
You're
know
very
what it was.
preferential in your liking.
Hey, why not? I like what I like. Okay. And actually, I remember what it was because it was back in that last episode. You were saying Robbie Fabry, and I said, I'm pretty sure it's Fabry. And then I said hashtag Team Elon or hashtag Team Brian. And a couple people were.
I was wrong.
You were wrong.
Yeah, I was wrong about that.
Yeah, but
I think once upon a time I was right. And then I flipped it.
Well, you gotta get your head together, okay? Like, I think this episode, though, we've been perfect. I don't think we've said one name incorrect. At me if you disagree. Okay, let's talk about an outjury now. Victor Hedman has returned for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He came back yesterday. He got back on the top power play, and he scored a power play goal in that 6-4 loss to the Sens. I feel like the buy low window is probably closed now. Hedman had owned those 4 points in 9 games before getting hurt, but he's back, scored a goal. So if you could have gotten him, or if you did get him while he was hurt and having a slow start to the season, then congratulations to you, Brian. But of course, the Lightning player I need to ask you about is this rookie, Matthew Joseph, who had 2 goals and 1 assist yesterday after picking up a couple of goals in his previous 3 games as well. This guy's getting low ice time. Again, let me repeat this. Matthew Joseph, because I'm sure no one knows who this guy is. Low ice time, bottom 6 deployment, no power play time. I'll ask you who this guy is, but I'm totally expecting that you're going to give me a similar answer to Good Branson on the Canucks as someone not worth owning just by looking at this deployment. Who is this guy?
The question is, where do these guys keep coming from on Tampa? Now we have Matthew Joseph, who joins Cirelli, and Yanni Gourde is suddenly impact, at least briefly, NHLers who've come out of apparently nowhere. Matthew Joseph, born in Laval, was drafted 120th overall back in 2015 and is just entering his second pro season. In his first pro season, he put up 15 goals, 38 assists for 53 points in 71 games, plus 7 points in 7 playoff games for AHL Syracuse. I should have clarified right at the start that was all in the AHL, that production. Joseph has now scored on 4 consecutive shots. That's right, 4 shots, 4 goals in his last 4 games. So not great that it takes him 4 games to get 4 shots. And even though his shot numbers had actually been a little healthier before this run, now I guess Joseph is like, oh, that worked. And he's getting super picky about which shots he takes, only wants to take the shots that are going to go in. So he misses 0% of the shots that he does take, or something like that. Also, 4 of Joseph's last 5 points have come against Ottawa. So we can adjust that to like 2 actual points, right? Just kidding. Sorry. It's been a tough season for Sens fans. Anyway, cool.
Really.
Good job, Matthew Joseph. I've been wrong about Yanni Gourde for 2 years now. So me just saying this is temporary for Matthew Joseph, feel free to jump on him anyway, just to spite me and to say, hey, Brian, you've been wrong about Yanni Gourde all this time. I am not listening to what you say about any Tampa player.
Okay, Yanni Gourde, so good. Have you changed your mind about him? Do you agree now that he's like going to be like a 65, 70 point guy?
No.
You're wrong, but okay, fine. He plays with Braden Point. What more do we need to say?
Yeah.
By the way, also, I'm sure there's a lot of people.
I'm closer now than I was before. Sorry to interrupt. I'm playing with Braden Point is a great place to be, but he's still doing it on percentages that shouldn't be sustainable, but somehow have been.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyways, it's too late now. Everyone's already lost out on him if they listen to you, so it doesn't matter. Brian, also, I feel like some listeners are probably being like, Brian, stop whining. Like, it hasn't been that hard of a season for the Sens. They're doing better than a lot of people expected. All right, so enjoy the ride, okay? Thomas Chabot,
it's
okay?
not just on the ice that matters.
Okay, of course. Well, I get you. Let's go to Vegas now and talk about Max Pacioretty, who returned to the Golden Knights last week to continue his terrible season. He took a break from his terrible season. Now he's back to continue it. No points in 3 games since returning, up to 2 goals and no assists in 13 games overall. And that's actually before today's game. Vegas is losing to Boston 3-1. And actually, I'm seeing that Cody Eakin scored a goal, and I believe he has been centering the Pacioretty line. What do you want to guess whether or not Pacioretty got a point on that goal?
I already know. Alex Tuck got the lone assist on that goal.
Yeah, maybe Pacioretty was on the ice, so that's something. But yeah, like this is not going well for him. And like Pacioretty, to his credit, he took 9 shots yesterday, but couldn't get one past Carey Price. Every single other player on the team was getting everything past Carey Price. Pacioretty couldn't. So yeah, like I said, he's been playing on the second line with Alex Tuck and Cody Eakin because Eric Haula is out. He had a scary lower body injury on Tuesday, got stretchered off the ice. So good luck to Eric Haula. I hope you get better soon. Pacioretty did, though, get his top power play spot back, actually, and he didn't bump Alex Tuck to get it. William Karlsson has jumped to the second power play, though that power play has actually been getting a decent amount of ice time. Shea Theodore also went to the second power play, and Colin Miller got on the top one, and Theodore and Karlsson got power play points. So, you know, I wouldn't be too concerned about this power play situation. But, you know, speaking of Alex Tuck, he's been on fire since his debut. His goal yesterday was his 8th point in 9 games. And now, like you just said, he had an assist today. So make that 9 points in 10 games. Both myself and my BFF, Daniel Negreanu, said we'd prefer Tuck to Pacioretty a couple weeks ago. And you said you'd want Pacioretty. And the Daniel tweeted at us saying that he bets you that you'll change your mind before the season is over. Brian, are we at that point yet? Like, do we have to wait till the season is over? Like, come on, you got to want Tuck more than Pacioretty, right? Like, Tuck's getting points every game. Pacioretty can't do anything.
Daniel also generously put up 2 tickets to a Vegas Golden Knights game. Should I be right? Or should he be wrong, I guess would be the frame.
Who gets it? For you and me?
No, for some lucky listener.
Oh, okay. Well, someone's getting these tickets.
And I get, no, that's if I'm wrong.
You, of course, are wrong. I thought it was just like,
right. Oh my gosh, I need to review the terms of this bet. I told him I would send him a shirt if I was wrong about Pacioretty. So he's going to make the tickets available if he's wrong about Tuck. So our listeners should be cheering for me and Max Pacioretty. But if I wanted to change my mind, I haven't had like on whether I think Pacioretty or Tuck is going to be better. Well, I actually kind of changed my mind instantly after making the bet with Daniel when I realized I'd misread Patch's expected goals for numbers in a way that flattered him more than he deserved. And like flipped the script with me saying his expected goals numbers are fine. They're actually up over the last couple of years. No, they're still in decline. But I also said at the time that Pacioretty, when I realized that Pacioretty, his route to exceeding Tuck in fantasy relevance was going to have to involve him making his way back onto the top power play, which he's done. So we're on our way. And Pacioretty also needs to see his on-ice shooting percentage climb to some respectable level. Right now, or going into tonight's game, it's sat at 2%. 2 out of every 100 shots taken at 5-on-5 while Pacioretty was on the ice are going in. Maybe he's killing the offense in a way that would just be insane. Like, one player does not have that much impact on a team's on-ice shooting percentage. So I still have some hope. I don't know that I'm ready to put Tuck ahead of Patches in fantasy relevance at the end of the season. But in this moment, Tuck is probably the better own until Pacioretty does something, which I still clearly have faith or hope that he will have been able to do something in time for me to win my bet against Daniel Negreanu, a guy who bets for a living. Oh, God. What have I done?
Yeah, Brian, you're
foolish.
Also, like, I believe it was Daniel who, like, he gave the reason why Pacioretty is the sole reason for the low on-ice shooting percentage, right? He shoots too much, he never passes, and it's infuriating as a Golden Knights fan.
Yeah, I don't think he's so in control of that on-ice shooting percentage. I get the argument. I'm holding out hope, but I realize that my odds are shrinking with every passing day.
Yeah. Anyways, Alex Tuck, whatever. So if you want to hold on to Pacioretty, have fun with that. If your league counts shots, he's helping you there, even though they're apparently bad shots that are not likely to go in. Alex Tuck, on the other hand, like if he's available in your league, like you're running out of time, you have to add him. He's only 22% owned in Yahoo, which is nuts considering he's getting points in almost every game. He's 100% owned in the cupful, of course. I wish I had him. I have him in one league at least. But yeah, Alex Tuck is in a great spot and he's producing. And this is only like his second season, so we may have a really strong career for this Alex Tuck over the next few years. I feel like this is maybe your last chance to get him as a free agent, maybe ever, right? Or for a very long time. So grab him if he's available as a free agent in your league, Brian. At least I know you're not going to disagree with me on that. I'm not even going to ask you. I'm going to move on to the next out jury, which is Ty Rattie, who finally returned to the Oilers on Tuesday. He got back to not only the top line with Connor McDavid, but also the top power play. He bumped Milan Lucic. Finally, Lucic got bumped from that top power play, and Rattie had a power play assist on Tuesday. Nothing on Thursday, but got to imagine he's someone that you need to seriously consider adding just because he has this deployment, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
What was this?
I wasn't ready.
Is that a bit?
No. Vucinic.
No, Ty Ratty.
Ty Ratty. Sorry.
What are you doing? Why are you writing a million things on the chat room?
Sorry.
We're recording a live show. You've written like 10 things. No one's even responding to you.
Okay. Well, okay.
I said Ratty's
Ty
someone you have
Ratty.
to seriously consider adding, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you should seriously. Okay. Yeah, you should seriously consider owning Ty Ratty. Although if you already do, like I do, I bet you're kind of annoyed that Ratty came off injured reserve only to get scratched for a couple games and burn a roster spot, and then not do much, like to really redeem those missed games yet. But of course, you want anyone playing with McDavid, and that's what Ty Ratty is doing. So hold on for now. I've got him on one roster. I'll admit, though, that I am keeping the leash pretty short. If he gets knocked off that top line, forget it. But the fact that the Oilers sent down Kyler Yamamoto and Jesse Puljujarvi makes me feel like there are even fewer options now than before to bump Ty Ratty off of that top line.
Yeah, he's going to be there at least, at least a few games, and he'll have to be really terrible to get bumped, I'd imagine. But plus, remember, over the summer, Connor McDavid said he wants a consistent line. It's no one's fault that Ty Ratty got injured, so now hopefully he'll be back and they could get something going. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins having a great season, just like we predicted, and let's see if Ty Ratty can come along for the ride. Let's go to the Rangers now. Matt Zuccarello is injured. He's missed the last couple of games with a groin strain. I just read, though, recently that he might even be back as early as tomorrow, so this might be moot, though it is still worth talking about because the big beneficiary of Zuccarello being out has been Pavel Buchnevich, who got his line one and power play one spot back and playing with Mika Zibanejad, who's amazing. And Buchnevich has taken advantage. Like when he gets good deployment, he gets points. This is pretty consistent, right? He had a goal and an assist yesterday. He has 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 6 games. I feel like if Pavel Buchnevich is in free agency, you've got he's another guy I'd be seriously considering adding. And I think he is in free agency in a lot of leagues because he had that really short stretch. Of course, the reason to not add him would be because Zuccarello will come back and maybe bump Buch back to the bottom 6 or wherever the coach likes to send him whenever he gets the opportunity, it seems. But, maybe with Buchnevich producing right now, maybe he gets to stay playing with Zibanejad. He clearly produces when he's there.
So Zuccarello could be back Monday, which could mean this is all over before it starts for Buchnevich, really. But what I hope it means is what you were getting at, Elon, is that Buchnevich has yet again shown that he can do good things when given good minutes, and that this most recent demonstration of his keeps his coach from submarining his deployment the moment Zuccarello re-enters the lineup. I really also like Buchnevich's 7 shots in his last 3 games. I'm not sure he'll keep taking them at that rate, but it would be nice. I am keeping my fingers crossed. I'm knocking on wood that Buchnevich can hold on to this good deployment because, well, he seems to have earned it, but that hasn't stopped other coaches and this coach from burying him in the past anyway.
Well, yeah, I think it was more for defensive liability issues, right? Like he's shown that he can score offensively, but
he's also proven himself to be responsible defensively.
Oh, well, there you go. So keep him there. Like I think Nemestikov's been playing on the line on the top line. Like bump him and then play Buchnevich with Zibanejad and Zuccarello. Easy, right? But I think they're trying to showcase it. Who am I talking about? Nemesnikov, for a potential trade. So like the thing with the Rangers or for any of these teams, it's tough when a team isn't incentivized to win. Like the Rangers know they're not a contender. So maybe it's not in their best interest to play their best possible lines for various reasons, like showcasing people for a trade or trying to get a better draft pick. Who knows? Another guy on the Rangers that I really want to bring up, I was actually all prepared going into the weekend. I was going to ask you for permission to finally let our listeners drop Kevin Shattenkirk from their leagues because he had only 3 points in his first 14 games, but now he's got points in each of his last 2 games, and he's been seeing over 50% of the power play time in each of his last 6 games. Sometimes not on the top power play, but I guess in those games, he's still getting more ice time overall. I don't know, like Shattenkirk seems to be a little bit back on track at this point, so maybe you were right all along again, and maybe I was wrong all along again. Like this is the episode where Brian, you're looking really good and I'm looking really bad, except for this Alex Tuch thing, though who knows, maybe in a few weeks, maybe this is just a sign of things to come where I'm going to be coming back with my tail between my legs about Alex Tuch and Pacioretty. I don't expect that to happen. What am I talking about here? Kevin Shattenkirk. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you said like I was right and you were wrong, but for anyone who's held by my advice the last 3 weeks in a weekly league, they've suffered, right? You were right until now, and you still might not be wrong.
Yeah, so good point. But Shattenkirk, if he was dropped in your league, which he may very well have been, now's the time to consider adding him back because he has all that upside as, he should be, you'd expect him to be a top power play guy. He used to be like a 55, 60 point guy. And now that he's gotten points in each of his last 2 games, I feel like you got to add him.
Yes, you do. And just because Kevin Shattenkirk has been too good to suddenly disappear at this point in his career. He's still 29. He turns 30 in late January. His shot rates remain healthy. Shattenkirk is just hurting a lot on the power play, but now that that deployment has come back, hopefully we'll see his 6% on ice shooting percentage on the power play at least double the way it should, so that Shattenkirk can see the scoring success that he's going to need to hold that spot and that he's capable of quarterbacking.
Yeah, and by the way, not to say that Neil Pionk is done. Like, he had a goal in 3 straight games before going pointless yesterday against Columbus. So I'm not saying everyone needs to drop Neil Pionk all of a sudden, but maybe you want to hold both if you can for a little while until like that gets settled, or maybe they'll just both be useful owns in fantasy. That happens. Sometimes teams have 2 defensemen worth owning. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Let's go to a team now. Okay, so we're outside of injuries and outjuries now, just into our general. We're going to wrap up the show with some line combo stuff, hot streaks, cold streaks. Has anyone noticed that Sam Girard has bumped Tyson Barrie from the top power play for the last 4 games in Colorado? Like, WTF, Jared Bednar. I do not like this one bit. Like, why would this happen? Sam Girard, okay, he has 1 power play assist, 2 assists overall in that span. So he's been okay. And Barrie, by the way, he's been good. Like, he has at least an assist in 5 of his last 6 games. So overall, his numbers haven't been hurt, but of course, no power play points since the demotion. And it's like, what's going on? Like, this is the type of Tyson Barrie was someone that people drafted assuming, like, there was not even a question that he was going to run the top power play with McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog and, you know, like, potentially get 60, maybe have upside for 70 points. Like, I talked about him as a guy like a buy low, even though he was doing well, just because I saw that he wasn't even scoring on as many of his shots that he should be. And now all of a sudden, like, Sam Girard gets that spot. So Brian, like, have you seen anything to explain why this is happening? Should Barrie owners be concerned, or is this just going to end very quickly because it's ridiculous?
Well, Girard is the heir apparent to that top power play. The moment Barrie moves on, which at times it seemed imminently about to happen, it hasn't happened yet, obviously. One thing that bugs me about Girard being in this spot is that, like, he's still not taking shots, which has been the knock on him all this time, that there's upside for points, but no shots while you're waiting for them. Girard has just 20 shots in 16 games so far this season, and 4 of those came in Colorado's most recent game against Winnipeg. 2 games ago, Girard had more than 3 minutes of power play time and only took 1 shot. Unfortunately, as for the reasons why this has happened, the Avs are kind of an undercovered team in teams of there being good info out there about why this switch has happened or how long it will last. I haven't found it. If anybody else has found any reporting on this, please tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson. But I guess my advice is, like Heiskanen, Sam Girard is someone worth owning while he's playing up on such a really good top power play unit. Elon, last week, you said buy low on Tyson Barrie. I disagreed with you that his value was actually low, though. But this week, it sure feels like it's low. Would you still buy low on Tyson Barrie?
Yeah, well, again, like, this was also in the Patreon, I think, Brian, not in the regular show. So most listeners don't know about that. But yeah, I was just saying, like, you know, because people ask, like, who's a buy? You know, we get great questions. I said I was going to use my stupid voice, but I like that question, actually. Like, who's a good buy low? Who's a good sell high? That's a question we get for almost every Patreon we do, which is a bonus podcast we do every single month for the patrons. And you could get more information at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. But yeah, we were asked who's a buy low. And, you know, I could obviously say someone who's just not doing well. But I thought a fun answer would be someone like Tyson Barrie, who was doing fine, but I thought could be doing even better, like I just said, just because he was not scoring many goals. He was getting assists, but not scoring goals, and you could expect him to score some more goals. He had goals last year. Now, obviously, now is a good time to get Tyson Barrie, just unless we see really a reason to expect that Sam Girard's just going to hold the spot the rest of the year. I'm still under the assumption that maybe Barrie's being taught a lesson or something, and at some point he's going to get that spot back. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I don't really have an answer for you, Brian. Like, try to get Barrie if you can. I think he's still getting points. That's the fun thing. At least for now, he's getting points, just not on the power play. We had a question in our chat room here from our Alex Tuck conversation. Mike asked Tuck or Pominville. I said Tuck. I think it's actually an easy answer. One thing to keep in mind, Pominville's been great. We talked about how everyone was a genius if they added him. He was not on the top power play for Buffalo in their last game. They were with Okposo, Eichel, Reinhart, and Jeff Skinner, and Ristolainen, by the way. So Dahlin has also been bumped from the top power play. And so Pominville's still on the top line with Eichel and Skinner. But I still kind of feel like at some point, like, hold Pominville for now, but I still feel like at some point Sam Reinhart is going to get back on the top line. He was the guy that's supposed to be a lock to play with Eichel all season long. So give me Alex Tuck there. Do you agree?
I agree. I have a little more faith, like you, in Alex Tuck's season-long deployment. Although Pominville fitting in so well on that top line in Buffalo, you do start to wonder just how long he can last there. He's already lasted longer than Connor Sherry did. I think. I haven't actually counted up the games.
Yeah, I think so.
But like he's made it farther than we would have thought when we first saw him on that line.
Yeah, sometimes these questions are tough, right? Like Tuck or Pominville. Like I feel like in most leagues they should both be owned. Like my question is like almost like, do you have another option? Like, or congratulations for having such an amazing team where you'd have to drop Pominville to add Alex Tuck. Though I guess if Alex Tuck is available, it's obviously a pretty shallow league. Okay, another shakeup on the New York Islanders. Matt Barzal has replaced Brock Nelson as the guy centering Anders Lee and Josh Bailey. So now it's been top line Barzal with Lee and Bailey, and then Anthony Beauvillier was bumped from the top 6 completely. So Brock Nelson was centering a line with Jordan Eberle and Tom Kuhnackel, of all people. So this is not great news for Jordan Eberle, who goes from playing with Barzal to playing with Kuhnackel and Nelson. Eberle's pointless in 3 in a row now. Nelson has actually been on a pretty good run, 8 points in his last 9 games, including a goal yesterday versus Florida. But like with this deployment, I feel like both of them might be in some trouble, especially like at this point, Jordan Eberle, who you would have assumed is the guy you want to have for sure over Brock Nelson. At this point, I think we can start suggesting that people might want to consider dropping Jordan Eberle, especially in shallow leagues. Like he's not doing well, and now his deployment is garbage. Still on top power play, but I shouldn't say garbage, but like we were hoping that he would play with at least one of like either play with Barzal or be playing, if he's playing with Nelson, then also with like Lee or Bailey.
I do want Eberle playing with somebody better than Brock Nelson as the other guy who can drive offense. I don't know that either one of those two can drive their own line. And Tom Kuhnackel is the third piece. Obviously isn't moving the needle a whole lot for them offensively. I'm not going to make any rash decisions on Eberle based on this configuration of their lineup, because this is, like you said, like this is the third, maybe even fourth time we've seen the line shaken up in a sort of big way in Long Island this season. But some of the shine certainly comes off of Eberle if you were hoping for production from him this week. He does remain on the top power play, though. So that's the silver lining. That's your reason to keep the faith that, or at least to hang on, hope he can get you some production on that top power play to stave off, to I don't know, keep you happy until he ends up on a better line again.
Or like maybe he's just not that good. Like maybe he's going to get bumped from the top power play soon. Like Eberle hasn't been that great this season, Brian. We have to admit it.
Yes. So absolutely, if he gets bumped off that top power play and he's playing with Brock Nelson and Tom Kuhnackel, he's not someone you probably want.
Okay. The next team I wanted to talk about that have shifted up their lines, Nick Ehlers. Actually, a lot of people have been asking us if they can drop Nick Ehlers since pretty much the start of the season. Most recently, new patron Ryan and at M Miller Photo on Twitter both asked us for permission. Hey guys, can I drop Nick Ehlers already? Luckily, our reluctance to tell people to pull that trigger, I believe for a couple of the recent times, I just was like, we'll talk about it on the next show. At least, buy us some time until Sunday. And like now we've been rewarded, and the people who've held on to him have been rewarded, as Ehlers has a goal in each of his last 2 games. He's been playing on the top line with Wheeler and Scheifele. And actually, when I say the last 2 games, I'm not even including today's game. Winnipeg won 5-2 over New Jersey. I'd assume Ehlers did something. Hey, 1 goal, 1 assist. So Ehlers is on a really nice run right now. If he was dropped in your league, I feel like it's time to add him. Still not on the top power play, but if he's playing with Wheeler and Scheifele, that's a great spot to be in. He's obviously a really good player. He was cold for a while, but now he's hot, and that's why you hold on to someone with a high pedigree like Nick Ehlers if he's in a good spot on the roster.
Yeah, exactly. I remember Ehlers having a really dry spell or 2 last season, and I was in a shallow enough league that I streamed him in and out as he ran hot and cold. But if you don't have that ability to sort of relieve the upset while Ehlers is cold, you just kind of have to hold him, especially with him coming alive with 2 goals in 2 games on his last 6 shots. That was going into tonight's action. One thing not to like about Ehlers, though, is that his shot rates have sunken since last year, and it shows in his counting numbers. Ehlers averaged about 3 shots per game last season, but this year, just over 2 shots per game. So he's not one of the funner fantasy owns. He's a guy I don't love drafting because he does go cold and he doesn't get top power play time. But if you do draft him, you just kind of have to hold him because the upside once he gets rolling is high.
All right. Yeah. One sec. I'm being asked if they're about to run a bath for the baby. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be loud, but okay, I'll try my best. Let's just power through here. Okay.
Power through.
It's one jet that I think we can definitely tell people that they can drop is Josh Morrissey, right? Like the days of him getting the top power play are long gone. He had an assist on Friday versus Colorado, but that was his first point in 7 games. I guess I might as well check and see what Morrissey did today. No points again. So yeah, at one point, everyone was adding Morrissey and getting excited about him, but Bufflin's the clear top power play guy. Morrissey, waiver, wire, fodder.
Okay, sure. Waiver wire fodder for sure. Not an awful guy, Josh Morrissey, for peripherals. He usually puts up a total of 5 combined shots/hits, blocks for what that's worth in your format. So not worthless in bangers leagues, but worthless in points leagues. You're muted.
Sorry, everyone in the chat room. I'm just like talking about this like water thing. I'll tell her that it's fine to run the water, and if it runs, then so what? Okay. So what? I'll show right here. Okay. Oh, it's been such a smooth live show with no edits, and now here we are. Okay, let's go now to there's a couple more teams to go. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Okay, and another player we're getting a lot of drop permission requests for is Dougie Hamilton over on Carolina. Like Ehlers, Hamilton scored in his last game, but he's still off the top power play and only has 6 points in 17 games on the year. He's been getting less than 20 minutes of ice time in each of his last 3 games. Brian, are you like seeing anything in Dougie Hamilton's numbers or play that tells you that he's going to bounce back anytime soon? Or can we start giving people permission to consider dropping him if an appealing defenseman shows up in free agency? Like maybe like Kevin Shattenkirk was dropped. Maybe at this point you're like, oh, I'd rather take Shattenkirk, who's actually doing something right now, rather than Dougie Hamilton.
The cruel thing about Dougie Hamilton, beyond him not having an opportunity or sustained opportunity on the top power play yet, is that Hamilton is actually generating more shots and shot attempts than he ever has before at 5-on-5. But unfortunately, he's playing 90 seconds less per night at 5-on-5, and his IPP is 33% when he should be in the mid-40s or closer to 50. And his on-ice shooting percentage looks vintage Carolina, down at 5.5%. So I expect things to turn in a good way for Dougie Hamilton at 5-on-5. And it's not a dissimilar story with Hamilton's production and poor variance on the power play. So even if Hamilton stays on the second power play unit, he's still a 45-point guy in my books, with upside for more if variance doesn't just even out, but also works in his favor. Not to mention the ongoing possibility that Hamilton does one day find himself playing on a power play unit with Sebastian Aho and Toivo Teravainen. So like dropping for Shattenkirk is a really great question. If your league values power play points, I would make that switch. If it doesn't, I'd call it even at this point.
What if your league counts points? Okay, yeah, so you're saying it's even. Yeah, like Dougie Hamilton, the thing is, a good general fantasy strategy also is you have to know your league, right? Maybe you could drop him and then be the first one to add him back if some deployment change happens. Like just be really quick on the trigger to add him back. But yeah, not looking good for him. And Brian, I have a new policy to suggest moving forward. Like no more drafting defensemen who've been traded to new teams in the offseason. Like at least when a forward has been traded, there's a lot more spots for him. There's more power play spots available. There's more top 6 spots available. Like we've got Erik Karlsson and Dougie Hamilton both went to new teams. We assumed a certain deployment for them, and both of them haven't gotten it, right? Like with Karlsson, like Brent Burns seems to be getting more of the power play time for a lot of the games. So yeah, I think moving forward for me, at least, I'm not going to be drafting these defensemen who get traded, assuming that they're going to be just as good as they were before, because you never know if they're going to get that top power play and get all the minutes that they used to get. Very frustrating for the people. Like the risk just doesn't seem worth the investment. Like obviously they fall in drafts. If everyone's following this policy, at some point you want to draft one of these guys. But like Hamilton and Erik Karlsson both seem to have been drafted a little too early this year, and perhaps they should not have been, since there was so much risk that we didn't know where they were going to fit in on their teams. Brian, let's end the show. Another player we've got a bunch of questions about is Anze Kopitar. He is pointless in 3 games. He has a sad 6 points in 15 games on the year. This guy had 92 points last season. Kopitar had 92 points last season. Now, like I said, he's on pace for like one of his worst seasons ever. Though the year before, he wasn't great. He had 52 points the year before. Then he had 74 points the year before that. 64 points the year before that. Like Kopitar's been all over the place. I kind of feel like there's a lesson to be learned here as well, right? Like maybe you don't want to draft a player that's been wildly changing his point production every single year, and then maybe don't draft him based on what he did on the last season, as we've been seeing from Kopitar, that he's just so inconsistent.
Yeah. So let me just start my answer again. So I'm going to give a shout out to our patron Michael, HCHAYMOS on Twitter if you want to follow him. That's just my thank you for his contributions here, who answered in our patrons only Facebook groups a question someone had asked about Anze Kopitar and provided all the numbers to show that Kopitar has been someone from 2013 through to 2016 who was weak at the start of the season and then became a point per game or near point per game player essentially in the second half or around like the 25-30 game mark. And last year, Kopitar was great all the way through. And this year, I just don't know what we can hope for. If we can hope for that same trend to continue from the 4 years prior to last year, where you could say, yeah, just hang on. Kopitar is going to get going. Don't worry about it. I'm a little more worried for Kopitar than usual. Just seems like too large a load is being placed on Kopitar's shoulders in LA. The guy can only carry a team for so long. I still would wait on him if I owned him, because what else can you do? And his dreadful 30% IPP suggests better times are ahead in some respects. He only has 2 assists so far. What is that? But that's the only marker that's far too low right now, that IPP. The rest is looking like it could sustain. Like, he doesn't deserve a whole lot more points than he has. So I'm definitely not giving up on the possibility that Kopitar could be a point per game player second half, but I think that's a greater challenge in this context, in this season, than it has been for him in the past. And I'm not banking on him quite as much to be able to do it. Frankly, I'll be happy if he can, at some point this year, start producing at like a 65, 70 point pace.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Kopitar, like you say, like he has upside to potentially play at a point per game pace for any stretch at some point during the season. So I feel like if you drafted him, you could sort of say, oh, shame on me, kind of blew it. But I would definitely hold on. I wouldn't like trade low, like, try to get someone crappy for him just to get someone. Like, I think that I would hold on, hope for the best, and then, reassess next year when it's time to draft. But at this point, yeah, hold Kopitar if you have him, and then just be mad at yourself, hate yourself, be on tilt. That's what it's sometimes like to play fantasy hockey. Don't play him in your FanDuel leagues at the very least. You could have a short break from owning Anze Kopitar.
Do that again. You could have a short break.
Maybe don't draft him in your FanDuel leagues so you can have a short break from not having to depend on Anze Kopitar. But Brian, okay, that's it for this week. What a fun show. I feel like we've covered so many players. I hope you all enjoyed it on the goalie show at the first, and then we gave you a bunch of free agents to consider and a bunch of players that you might want to think of dropping. If you enjoyed the show, we'd of course always love to hear about it on Twitter at Keeping Karlsson. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like. And if you really like the show, a 5-star review on iTunes is always very, very much appreciated. We have, I mentioned it before, our patron program. If you are a super avid fantasy hockey player or a fan of our show, why not consider paying $5 a month to support this podcast and also get a boatload of perks? We've got our monthly patron cast. We've got our Keeping Karlsson patron only Facebook group, which is active all the time. A lot of really smart people giving great advice. And thanks to all the patrons in that Facebook group who are helping make it such a great community for everyone there. We've got Stream Scheme. There's going to be a new one out tonight. I'm going to release it right after we're done recording this episode. So that's a bonus show just for patrons made by the great Dave Betton. We've got like the average time on ice guys are there. I don't know. I just love Marcus and his percentage owned in the Cacuffle spreadsheet. He shares that for the patrons. So check it out, keepingkarlsson.com/patron, and you can see all of the benefits of supporting our show. But with that, Brian, how about we cue the outro music, and you can go ahead and read us the credits.
All right. Great job, Elon, by the way. You were fantastic tonight in a new and strange environment. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our newest ones, Patrick A., Jim N., Christopher C., and Brandon B. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dobber Prospects, Corsica, Natural Stat Trick, Charting Hockey, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, and Yahoo.
Great job, as always, Brian. By the way, thank you for doing a great job in your same environment. And okay, thanks everyone for listening. Enough thank yous. All right, let's just all go home. Let's watch the night games. See ya, everybody.
Till next time, keep on keeping Karlsson.
Can you say that again? There's actually a little bit of a glitch there.
Until next time, keep on keeping Karlsson, even though it's still hard.
No, it's fine. Whatever. I'm over it now.
You're over keeping Karlsson?
No, like I'm over getting stressed about it. Like now anything he gives me will be gravy. My teams are doing fine even with him not playing well. And I don't know. I'm trying to be zen about it right now. So I'm not full tilt all the time. Maybe I should stop saying that word. I've been saying it so much.
Too many tilts. You got to ease into the tilt.
Man, like I've been saying it I've been traveling with some friends and I feel like I can't stop saying this word. It's such a good word. Okay. Bye everyone.
Bye.
You did leave out that patron that asked not to be named?
Yes, I did.
Good job. Thanks, everyone, for being a part of this. What a good time. And with that, I'm going to go and bid you adieu.
Bye.
Bye.